Chapter 2543. Her legs were slightly bent, and she maintained a kneeling posture. Her knees rubbed against the ground heavily, and she uncontrollably retreated backward. This posture was really pure and clean. The corners of everyone's eyes twitched, and they rolled their eyes inwardly. If she didn't have the ability, why did she rush up to pick a fight? She was swept away by the little crown princess, right? Xiao Ying-chen knelt on the ground and coughed wretchedly. She looked at her knees, which had 2 bloody marks on them, in shock. What happened just now? Her short-circuited brain was finally connected, and her body couldn't help but tremble slightly. She actually went to fight that terrifying woman from Arbor. When she looked up, she saw Xiao Mu slowly walking over and standing in front of her. The little girl looked down at her with a strange glint in her eyes. Who allowed you to use my name in reverse? Madame Zhongli's heart skipped a beat. She was about to step forward to stop her when the young madam pulled her back. Madame Zhongli thought about it. That's right. Today's incident happened even if it didn't happen. This little crown princess revealed a side that was different from ordinary people just now. She was arrogant, aloof, and spoke bluntly. She didn't listen to anyone. As the madam of Zhongli estate, she couldn't interfere with the crown princess's matters. She could only stand and watch. The other madams and young misses who were watching the show couldn't help but be taken aback. They recalled the crown princess's words just now and looked curiously at Xiao Ying-chen, who was still kneeling on the ground and unable to get up. Oh right, the crown princess's name was Arbor. Didn't this Mu estate's young lady, Mu Qiao, have her name in reverse? Was it such a coincidence? Everyone thought. The little crown princess's icy gaze landed on Xiao Ying-chen. She sized her up from head to toe and sneered, "You want to pretend to be me? Look at your face. You're already so old, yet you're pretending to be a 15-year-old girl. Aren't you ashamed?" Everyone! Exclamation point. Xiao Ying-chen couldn't stop trembling. She was so angry. Her face was flushed red and covered with cold sweat and tears. The rouge on her face had long been soaked by sweat and tears, and now it was messily plastered on her face like mud. Arbor looked at her disheveled appearance and said mockingly, "Although I don't care about the Mu family, it doesn't mean that you can impersonate me. Do you understand what I mean?" Xiao Yingchuan's entire body trembled. The fury of being exposed in front of everyone and having her identity exposed almost shot out from her chest. She was so angry that her whole body trembled and her teeth chattered non-stop. She screamed, "Bitch, you're lying. Who wants to impersonate you? What did I replace you for?" The noblewomen in the courtyard were all astute people. Who wouldn't understand the meaning behind the crown princess' words? At this moment, they were all whispering to each other in astonishment. Could it be that the young lady that the Mu family had brought home with great fanfare was actually a fake? According to the crown princess's words, she is the real daughter of the Mu family. What? Didn't they say that the crown princess was a village girl from a small mountain village in the Lower Star domain? How did she get involved with one of the 6 great patrician families, the Divine Province's talisman patrician family? The flames of gossip burned fiercely in everyone's hearts. Everyone couldn't help but look at Arbor, then at Xiao Ying-chen. Their gazes swept back and forth between the two of them. Today's trip really wasn't in vain. Things kept coming up one after another. Tomorrow, the entire imperial capital's noblewomen would definitely talk about it. Chapter 2544. Arbor crouched down in front of Xiao Ying-chen, propping up her small chin. She sized her up a few times. "Xiao Ying-chen, you've only grown older these past few years, but you've lost your wisdom, right? I was originally wondering which brainless person actually dared to impersonate this crown princess." Arbor reached out a finger and lightly poked Xiao Yingchuan's head. I didn't expect this, and I'm a bit shocked. They actually brought you here. Arbor turned to look at the dumbstruck concubine Sher standing to the side. Concubine Sher's mind finally returned to normal. She understood that the person standing in front of her, whom everyone called the Crown Princess, was none other than Arbor. Concubine Sher was a bit frantic on the inside. When exactly did this Arbor enter the capital? Why didn't she receive any news at all? Arbor stood up, her gaze landing on Sher Huixin as she recalled the contents of the information. You're that concubine Sher. Sher Huixin. Concubine Sher adjusted her expression, then bowed to Arbor with a fawning smile. Greetings to the Crown Princess. May I ask how my Mu family's young miss offended the Crown Princess? If Arbor raised a hand to cut her off. You brought Xiao Yingchen here to replace me just to cause trouble for me. What exactly is your motive? Crown Princess must be joking. What motive could I, a mere concubine, have? Me? Arbor's expression abruptly changed, and she suddenly launched an attack. Xiao. Present. Slap her. Kai Xiao was now very familiar with slapping people's mouths. She was already very familiar with it. She walked up, rolled up her sleeves, and swiftly slapped concubine Sher's left cheek. Lowly servant. You actually dare to call yourself me in front of the Crown Princess. Unruly thing. Following that, another slap came on her right cheek. The Crown Princess didn't say to stop, so she slapped concubine Sher on both sides several times. That concubine mother was beaten until she screamed miserably. She was so angry that she couldn't help but tremble, and her cheeks were flushed red. Seeing this, Mu Royun was about to go crazy. She screamed, "Mother," and took out several attack talismans from her sleeves. She threw them at Arbor without a care. How dare you! Princess Consort Kong shouted angrily. Hurry up and stop, you little child of the Mu family. The other madams, including Madame Zhongli, also rebuked angrily. However, those talismans abruptly stopped in front of Xiao Mu. Mu Royun's fingers repeatedly formed seals. Once, twice, thrice, and countless times, she was unable to open the talisman. A trace of bewilderment flashed through her eyes. Let's go back. Arbor gently waved his hand. Those talismans then retreated back along the original path and suddenly appeared in front of Mu Royun. Immediately after, talisman energy shot out in all directions, and several whooshing sounds were heard as they attacked her. Ah! Mu Royun frantically dodged the attack talisman. However, how could she possibly dodge at such a close distance? She was instantly hit by two of the talisman energy beams. She spat out blood and flew out, landing with a thud on the ground. At this moment, concubine Sher had already been slapped more than a dozen times. She was struggling to retaliate, but the Crown Prince's personal guard pressed down on her shoulder. Enough. Arbor spoke indifferently. His gaze swept over Kai Xiao's red palm, and his eyes flashed. He threw her a small bottle of ointment, then picked out a palm-sized ferrule from his inner world and threw it to her. Are you stupid? I told you to hit people, but you wronged yourself. In the future, use a ruler to hit her. Kai Xiao's expression froze. Then, she cracked a smile and bowed. She said brightly, Yes, Crown Princess. Everyone. Chapter 2545. Jojo, are you alright? Princess Consort Kang's question was truly ruthless. The other madams really wanted to ask Princess Consort, which eye of yours saw that something happened to the Crown Princess? The little Crown Princess shook her head at Princess Consort Kang. Imperial Aunt, they can't hurt me. That's good, that's good. Princess Consort Kang said with heartache, I don't know where these wicked women came from. Each and every one of them is so ignorant and unruly. If we had known earlier that we were attending this kind of banquet, we wouldn't have come. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Madame Zhongli's face. She was also abnormally grieved and indignant. A perfectly good plum blossom banquet turned out like this. She was more infuriated than anyone else. I'll give you 2 days to clarify the matter of the impostor. I don't want to hear any nonsensical rumors about the name Mu Qiao. After saying this, Arbor took Princess Consort Kang's hand and walked out of the courtyard. Halfway there, she turned back and glanced at concubine Shi, who was glaring angrily, with a spurious smile. If your Mu family doesn't deal with this impostor within 2 days, don't blame me for using my methods to deal with this matter. I don't think you want to know how I'll deal with your Mu family. Arbor coldly glanced at them. Shi Huixin only felt that the little girl's icy gaze was like an evil spirit from the depths of hell, instantly snatching away half of her soul. I'm not even afraid of the netherworld or hell, so why would I be afraid of you vicious people? Throw the impostor back to the Mu family. I'm afraid concubine Shi won't be able to deliver the message. Go and deliver this crown princess's message to the Mu family. Yes. The crown prince's personal guards responded in unison. They nimbly picked up Qiao Yingchen, who was limp on the ground, and quickly walked out of the courtyard. Once these personal guards left, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. In addition, with the crown princess supporting Princess Consort Kang out, everyone felt that the air was much better. They looked at Shi Huixin, who was frozen there with an exceptionally unsightly expression. She then looked at Mu Royun, who was lying on the ground and vomiting blood. Everyone shifted their gazes to Shi Yongqian, who had been untied from the tree and was on the verge of death. She silently lit a candle for them in her heart and gave herself a serious warning. After seeing her today, the little crown princess was definitely not a kind person. Don't mess with him, absolutely don't mess with him. Whoever messed with him would be unlucky. Sir Jojo was in a good mood. He supported Princess Kang as they strolled slowly in the garden. Since they were here to attend the plum blossom banquet, then since they were already here, they might as well enjoy the plum blossoms. Jojo, is that Mu family's Yinyang Shi really so bold as to find a random person to impersonate you? Princess Consort Kang said angrily. Is there something wrong with this woman's brain? She's very clever. She wanted the fake to discredit me first. After that, when I came back, no matter how I tried to salvage the situation, the bad reputation had already spread. Princess Consort Kang was extremely shocked. She's really indulging in fantasy. Arbor smirked. But who cares? As long as I'm strong enough, I have the power to shut all of these frogs who make a fuss. Princess Consort Kang nodded approvingly and said with a laugh, right, the old prince also spoke like that. I was wondering why I hit it off with you so well. It turns out your personality is really similar to the old prince's. Oh right, there's no time like the present. Don't go back to the Eastern Palace in a while. Come home with me. 10:00 p.m. Chapter 2546. Arbor didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This Princess Consort Kang truly had the personality of immediately pulling the sails at the mention of wind. After Arbor accompanied Princess Consort Kang around the plum garden, she saw that the Princess Consort was a bit tired, so Arbor helped the Princess Consort to a viewing pavilion on the side to rest. Suddenly, a young maidservant rushed out from the side of the pavilion and mindlessly almost crashed into Princess Consort Kang's arms. The old mama who accompanied and protected the Princess Consort was experienced and reacted quickly. She flew forward to block and push, causing the young maidservant to stumble. The old mama was like a thick wall, blocking the Princess Consort and the young crown princess. Her brows furrowed as she sternly said, "Which branch's maidservant are you? Are you so blind? That young maidservant fell to the ground, her entire body trembling uncontrollably. She quickly flipped over and respectfully crawled to the ground, kowtowing as she cried, "Noble one, please forgive me, noble one, please forgive me." Princess Consort Kong frowned and looked down at the stains on her embroidered shoes. That maidservant had rushed out suddenly, and when she retreated, half of her foot had stepped into the flower bed on the side. Now, her embroidered shoes were also stained with mud and looked very indecent. That young maidservant hastily kowtowed and said, "Let this servant lead noble one to the pavilion around the corner to change her shoes." Princess Consort Kong nodded. Arbor rose to follow the Princess Consort. Unexpectedly, that young maidservant hastily crawled forward and knelt a few steps, saying urgently, "Noble one, please stay here for now. That pavilion is very small, not even as big as the steepled loft. The two of them won't be able to turn around." Princess Consort Kong coldly glanced at that young maidservant. "What do you mean by wanting the crown princess to stay here? Who wasn't shrewd in the maelstrom of power?" Princess Consort Kong was such an intelligent person that she could discern that maidservant's thoughts at a glance. The young maidservant's face paled in fright, and she stammered, "No, no. This servant doesn't dare to have any other thoughts. It's just that the pavilion is too small." Princess Consort Kong signaled with her eyes. The old mama by her side rolled up her sleeves and was about to step forward. Arbor stopped her and looked at the girl with deep meaning in his eyes. "Imperial Aunt, since someone wants me to stay here, then I'll stay here and take a look. It would be a waste of someone else's efforts. You child. Why are you so curious?" Princess Consort Kong glanced at her reproachfully and nodded, saying, "Then I'll be right back." "Okay, I'll stay here and wait for Imperial Aunt." The little fellow spoke expressionlessly. In Princess Consort Kang's eyes, he was exceptionally adorable. He really wanted to pinch the little girl's bun face. She looked so cute. Sir Jojo watched as Princess Kong left. He felt a little strange. What was going on with Princess Kang's happy expression, as if she had been struck by something cute? How could there be anything cute here? Jojo was actually a little curious as to who had arranged such a strange scene. That young maidservant didn't have much acting talent at a glance. She had made it so obvious that her little thoughts had been seen through at a glance. What did the mastermind want to do by using such a clumsy method to forcefully send Princess Kong away and force her to stay here? The little fellow took out a cup of piping hot spiritual tea from her inner world and sipped it intermittently, waiting calmly in the midst of chaos. She felt like she was waiting for a rabbit to appear. Unfortunately, she wasn't a tortoise. Instead, she was a vicious wolf that could devour human flesh. Chapter 2547. When Zhongli Jiwei and her group of girlfriends arrived at the viewing pavilion, they saw the little girl sitting in the pavilion from afar. She was holding a cup of steaming hot tea and sipping it in small sips. Hearing the sound of footsteps, the little girl didn't even lift her eyelids. Outside the pavilion, Aunt Jing took a few steps forward and reached out to block the path of the girls. She frowned and looked at Zhongli Jiwei. "The crown princess is resting here. Unrelated people are not allowed to come near," Aunt Jing said with a straight face. Aunt Jing was an old person in the palace and had been immersed in the palace for decades. She naturally had an aura that could suppress a group of young girls in a matter of minutes. Zhongli Jiwei clearly recognized Aunt Jing. She was very respectful towards Aunt Jing. She stepped forward and curtsied, then smiled and said, "Zhongli residents, Zhongli Jiwei greets Aunt Jing. We came specially to pay our respects to Her Highness the Crown Princess." Aunt Jing's gaze fell on Zhongli Jiwei, but her expression didn't change. "Wait here." After that, she let Kai Xiao and Kai Chi continue to block the others. She quickly walked into the pavilion and bowed to the little Crown Princess. Crown Princess, Miss Zhongli and her group are asking for an audience. Arbor had already seen the group of girls. There were about 7 or 8 of them. Zhongli Jiwei was the leader and the left Prime Minister's daughter, Chen Baojia, was following closely behind. A group of maidservants and biddies surrounded this group of noble girls. For a moment, they were dazzled with jewels, bright and beautiful, and the fragrance of cosmetics assailed their nostrils. Let's see them. Arbor nodded expressionlessly. These people sent the Wang Fei away. Weren't they here to cause trouble? Fine. Fighting once was fighting, fighting twice was fighting, fighting countless times was still fighting. Miss Qiao relented, so Aunt Jing let Zhongli Jiwei lead the group of girls into the pavilion. Fortunately, the pavilion was relatively large. After 7 or 8 girls walked in, it wasn't too crowded. Zhongli Jiwei smiled and walked forward. She bent down and curtsied. Greetings to the Crown Princess. Regardless of whether Chen Baojia and the others were happy or not, at least on the surface, they all bowed politely. Arbor didn't make things difficult for them. He nodded and let them rise. Has the Crown Princess been to the elegant court? If not, why don't you let Jiwei lead the way and take the Crown Princess to have a look? Zhongli Jiwei had a courteous look and said with a gentle expression, in our elegant court, the wintersweet blooms are the best. It would be a pity if the Crown Princess missed it. But I still have to wait here for the princess. Arbor said faintly. It doesn't matter. Jiwei left a maid, and the Crown Princess left a maid here to wait for Wang Fei. Later, when Wang Fei came, she would help Wang Fei lead the way to Yeyuan. What does the Crown Princess think? Arbor's dark eyes swept across her face, and a trace of coldness appeared at the corner of his lips. When Zhongli Jiwei met this calm gaze, she didn't know why, but her heart inexplicably trembled. She still had a smile on her face, but the smile unconsciously became a bit forced. What does the Crown Princess think? Zhongli Jiwei asked again. Arbor didn't disappoint her. He nodded very calmly. Miss Zhongli invited me so warmly. This Crown Princess naturally can't disappoint you. Zhongli Jiwei smiled a bit awkwardly. Crown Princess, please. Chen Baojia smiled and chattered. Crown Princess, the plum blossoms in the elegant court are blooming very well. Chapter 2548. There are many precious varieties. It's not commonly seen even in the palace, Chen Baojia said with a grin. Crown Princess, have you seen the black moon plum on Seacombe Planet? Oh my, there's also a type that surpasses the Snow White plum. Everyone says that it can compete with the Snow Domain's divine flower in appearance. Pfft, a woman with slender eyes and a sharp chin couldn't resist snickering. Miss Chen, aren't you joking? Where would the lower star domain's Snow Domain's divine flower come from? The Crown Princess probably hasn't even heard of it. The young Crown Princess blinked. She tilted her head and pondered before taking out a Snow Domain's divine flower from her inner world. Are you talking about this? Everyone, the face of the slit-eyed young miss who ridiculed the little stoic instantly flushed red. Some even retreated several steps and glared at the young Crown Princess in shock. Crown Princess, you. Why didn't this Snow Domain's divine flower attack her? Didn't they say that the Snow Domain's divine flower was proud and couldn't be touched by normal people? Why didn't anything happen when the young Crown Princess held that flower in her small paw? When everyone saw that the Snow Domain's divine flower was actually a complete divine herb with a complete root, they couldn't help but stare at the young Crown Princess as if they had seen a ghost. 2 young ladies gathered their courage and took a few steps closer. They carefully observed and nodded. It seems to be the Snow Domain's divine flower. Most of them had only seen this Snow Domain's divine flower in dossiers. How could they have seen the real thing? Looking at the young crown princess's indifferent expression as she held the snow domain's divine flower, those who didn't know would think that she had only taken a wild flower. How could they know that the young crown princess's 100-herb garden was filled with snow domain's divine flowers? Back then, Duan Yu gave her the storage talisman that contained the snow domain's divine flower. Besides that, there were also all kinds of strange concealed weapons and trinkets inside the storage talisman. When she opened that storage talisman to take a look, she was truly a bit surprised. When she thought of this snow domain's divine flower, she couldn't help but recall the days when she turned into a ferret after turning into a small animal. There were many things that were out of my control. Fortunately, this was all in the past. Jojo Sama would never tell anyone about his dark history. Humph. The little crown princess didn't let the girls admire it for long before she quietly put away the snow domain divine flower. Ji Xiang, the slender-eyed girl who had mocked the young crown princess and had never heard of the snow domain divine flower, had long since fallen silent. Seeing her blushing and hiding behind the crowd with her tail between her legs, the little crown princess glanced at her and ignored her. Zhongli Jiwei laughed dryly, then pretended to ask casually, "The crown princess actually carries such a perfect snow domain divine flower with her? I heard that the snow domain divine flower can't be grown unless it's in an extremely cold place." "That's right. The crown princess can just throw the snow domain divine flower into her inner world." "Will that work? Moreover, doesn't the snow domain divine flower attack people? I saw that the crown princess grabbed it with her hand earlier, but the snow domain divine flower didn't do anything to you." Thus, the little crown princess took out the snow domain divine flower again and handed it to Zhongli Jiwei. Zhongli Jiwei carefully reached out to touch the snow domain divine flower's spherical flower. All of a sudden, that flower grew wildly as if it had gone berserk, and all of its petals opened. Seeing that it was about to swallow Zhongli Jiwei's arm, the girl shrieked and pulled Zhongli Jiwei back. Chapter 2549. The young crown prince consort stroked this divine flower comfortingly before calmly putting it away. It turned out that this flower was a flower that could go crazy at any time. If you don't believe me, you can touch it and feel it for yourself. The little crown princess didn't want to say anything to these idiots. She glanced at them and walked into the arched door of the elegant court. Zhongli Jiwei bit her lips with a pale face. She looked at Chen Baojia, who was behind her and also looked pale. They exchanged glances and nodded. Then, they followed the little crown princess into the elegant court. The girls, who were defeated in the first round, smiled and surrounded them again. It was as if nothing had happened. Zhongli Jiwei recovered her dignified and elegant appearance, and she led Xiao Mu through the forest in Elegant Park. She pointed out the various famous flowers and plants in the park, showing them off to the young crown prince consort. "My father bought this jasper begonia from a gardener. He spent a lot of money to buy it. At first, the gardener kept it as the treasure of his shop. How could he sell it to my father?" Zhongli Jiwei smiled and said, "But the gardener saw that my father was a person who cherished flowers, so he reluctantly gave it to my father after much consideration. My father spent 300,000 spirit coins to buy this famous flower. You can appreciate it. This jasper begonia can bloom all year round. It has a long flowering period, and the flowers are rich and gorgeous. I have heard that Lord Left Prime Minister is the best at appreciating flowers. Today, I see that every flower in this garden is exquisite." The young crown prince consort reached out and took out a pot of tender and juicy jasper begonia. She also liked the jasper begonia very much. It was green in color and magnificent. After she raised one for her grandmother, she asked Little Tree to take the flower seeds and cultivate a batch of them on Paradise Planet for her. Was it rare? What kind of rare flowers and plants didn't she have in Paradise Planet? Showing off. Lord Jojo curled his lips. On the other hand, Miss Zhongli, whose face was once again swollen, had her entire pretty face flushed red. Looking at the pot in the crown princess's hands, whether it was in terms of appearance or color, it was much better than the jasper begonia that her family had spent a lot of money to buy. Don't you think this stoic-faced crown princess is infuriating? She won't talk to you either. If you mocked her for being ignorant, she would take something out of her inner world and slap you in the face. He didn't even give them a fucking chance to breathe. What was her inner world doing? Was there such a big space to store all these random things? As it turned out, the little crown princess really had nothing better to do. At this moment, she took out flowers one by one. The little crown princess had all of them, including the Xing Shui white plum and black moon plum that they had mentioned earlier. They looked plump and glossy, and their appearance was stunning. All the girls, he didn't know what to say. If only I could take back what I just said. This kind of inexplicable face slapping made them feel very angry, okay? Was this little crown princess's inner world being used as a warehouse by her? What kind of stuff was she piling up? She took out pots of flowers one by one, as if they didn't take up any space. Suddenly, she wanted to imitate the crown princess and show a stoic expression, indicating that she didn't want to talk. It would be best if she could reflect the deep malice that the crown princess had towards her. Where did this inexplicable feeling of suffocation come from? Chapter 2550. The young crown princess, who didn't want to speak, glanced at the women and saw that they were all pretending to admire the plum blossoms in the garden. Only then did she put away all the pots of flowers. Just now, in order to take them out for others to admire, she even specially asked Sapling to put them in pots and bring them out. Otherwise, it would be hard to explain why every plant had soil and roots, so why did she put them all in her inner world? At this moment, the young crown princess was also somewhat dissatisfied. It was clearly these women who were showing off all kinds of precious flowers in front of her and even mocked her for saying that she had never heard of the snow region's divine flower. The meaning behind their words was that they were mocking her, a nobody who came from the lower star region to the upper three prefectures, for not having seen the world. She was only providing evidence to prove that she had knowledge, so why did these women's faces turn sour and ignore her? A group of narrow-minded people. The young crown princess paced to Zhongli Jiwei's side and said with a serious face, "Go and see if the princess consort is here." Zhongli Jiwei nodded pretentiously and pulled a servant girl over, asking her to wait for the princess consort at the round arched door. Then, she rolled her eyes and turned to Arbor with a smile. "Crown princess, don't worry. The servant girl I left behind will lead the way for the princess consort." Qiao Mu nodded expressionlessly as she mocked inwardly. She had already flaunted her wealth and admired the treasured plum blossoms just now. If this Miss Zhongli didn't have any tricks up her sleeve, then she really would be disappointed in her. She spent so much effort to send the princess consort away. She couldn't have just wanted to make fun of her, right? Moreover, they probably didn't have enough fun. After all, they were all in a bad mood after being slapped in the face just now. At this moment, the slender-eyed girl, Ji Xiang, suddenly shouted, "Hey, look, that plum blossom is really blooming. Let's go closer and take a look." Zhongli Jiwei's eyes flickered. She took out a handkerchief and pretended to wipe the sweat from the corner of her mouth. She laughed softly and said, "Miss Ji, walk slowly." As Ji Xiang spoke, she quickened her pace and walked towards the plum tree. Looking up at the blooming plum blossoms, Ji Xiang pretended to accidentally twist her leg and slapped the plum tree in front of her. Buzz! A large mass of things flew out from the tree and flew towards the girls in the crowd. "Ah!" The girls screamed and hurriedly covered their noses and mouths with their handkerchiefs, waving them in front of their faces. Xiao Mu creased her brows and sniffed lightly. A dark glint involuntarily flashed through her eyes. A group of whimsical women actually learned the method of soaking handkerchiefs in insect repellent. In this way, by waving the handkerchief, he could avoid being stung by those stinging bees. Jojo could not help but want to laugh when he saw the 7 or 8 of them carefully wave their handkerchiefs in the same movement. There was a hint of mockery in their eyes. How dare he try to assassinate Jojo with such methods? That's good. Since these women liked to play with stinging bees so much, she would give them something to add to the fun. Xiao Mu surreptitiously raised her small hand and released a batch of fiery evil poisonous mosquitoes from Paradise Planet. Buzz! The fiery evil mosquitoes raised a pair of small cicada wings, flapped their wings, and flew towards the group of dumbfounded noblewomen. What's going on? What is that? They saw a mass of unknown black substance flying towards them. Zhongli Jiwei and the others all panicked. Chapter 2551. Taking advantage of the chaos, Arbor added some special powder to the girls, making them very attractive to the stinging bees. Thus amidst the chaotic screams and cries, the group of noble ladies no longer had the slightest bit of dignity. Each of them fled back and forth in the garden like stray dogs, avoiding the stings of the stinging bees. In order to protect their masters, the servant girls and senior servants hurriedly built a human wall. But what was the use of this? Those stinging bees seemed to have set their eyes on the young ladies. No one knew why they went crazy, but they directly bypassed the maidservants and rushed towards Zhongli Jiwei's group. Arbor sat on a stone stool at the side, calmly looking at the chaotic scene in front of him. When the Princess Consort hurried over, she saw the little fellow holding a small cup of tea and coldly looking at the chaotic scene in the garden. Princess Consort Kong was completely stunned. Then, she calmed down and hurried over. Jojo, what happened? Imperial Aunt, I also don't know what happened. Everything was fine on the way here, but when we came here, that Miss G was careless and bumped into a tree. Coincidentally, she poked a hornet's nest. Now, a swarm of stinging bees is chasing after them. It's really surprising. Princess Consort Kong, this little fellow is really too much. Can you not take a sip of tea and talk about a very nervous thing in a slow and unhurried tone? So strange. Sir Jojo blinked and pointed at the woman who was madly stung by the bees and ran into a tree. There, it's her, the Jinx Miss G. Princess Consort Kang's group of servant girls and senior servants, boom. Zhongli Jiwei guided an earth spirit to fly up. Her hands trembled incessantly as she summoned a flying sword from her conscience and slashed it directly at the swarm of stinging bees. But soon, her eyes were replaced by a bright light. That swarm of evil fiery poisonous mosquitoes that stung anyone they saw was extremely terrifying. Zhongli Jiwei and company had the illusion that they were courting death. They saw the swarm of mosquitoes kill their way out of the swarm of stinging bees. All the stinging bees were roasted into a ball of fire by them. A burst of evil fire rushed out of the stinging bees' bodies and burned them to ashes in a few minutes. The fire was still spreading around the garden. The frightened screams of the noble ladies finally attracted all the servants and guards in the front yard. When everyone set out to save everything in the garden, they had to ensure the safety of the ladies first. Arbor sat there expressionlessly drinking tea and even prepared a cup for the Princess Consort. However, the Princess Consort was an ordinary person, she naturally couldn't drink spiritual tea directly. Arbor asked Xiao Shu to brew another pot of Imperial Longjing tea and only added a small piece of tea leaf. Wang Fei's eyes lit up as soon as she drank it. She was full of praise for the little fellow's tea. Poor Madame Zhongli. This plum blossom banquet ended early in such chaos. Many kinds of plum blossoms in the elegant garden were all burned by the fire to the wind to be. However, no one knew that Lady Jojo had already taken advantage of the chaos to collect quite a number of rare plum blossoms. Since she was already here, she couldn't go back empty-handed. The little crown princess thought to herself. When Xiao Mu stealthily recalled the sabotaging demonic fire-venomous mosquitoes and helped Princess Consort Kong out of the chaotic courtyard, she just so happened to bump into Chen Baojia. When Sir Jojo saw this girl, he couldn't help but frown slightly. Chapter 2552. When did this Chen Baojia escape unscathed from that mess? She really did have some tricks up her sleeve. In the chaos just now, Sir Jojo naturally didn't pay much attention to this Chen Baojia. When Chen Baojia saw her and Princess Consort Kong, she hurriedly smiled and greeted them. Then, her eyes flashed as she said, "Is the Crown Princess going back?" Arbor nodded. Chen Baojia smiled and nodded. Then Baojia will send the Crown Princess and Princess Consort Kong off. Arbor pursed her lips non-committally. This Miss Chen really didn't treat herself as an outsider. She was only a guest in Zhongli's family, but she actually acted like the host and sent them off. It was really a bit funny. Chen Baojia made a gesture of invitation and sent the little Crown Princess and Princess Consort Kong out of the main courtyard. Then, she carelessly brushed the hair in front of her forehead and pretended not to care. Then, as if complaining, she said, "Baojia heard the servants at home gossiping, but I don't know if it's true. Right now, the servants are secretly spreading the news that not long after the Crown Princess returned, she sent the holy nun of the temple to prison today and beat up the eldest son of the king of Giant Pain tomorrow. I find it strange. What do these things have to do with them? The servants are even gossiping behind my back, saying how domineering the Crown Princess is. She won't even let some of the old people in the palace off." Eunuch Li Hongchuan was so angry that he fell ill in bed. "What nonsense are you babbling?" Princess Consort Kang's eyes hardened as she looked at Chen Baojia with dissatisfaction. Chen Baojia hurriedly smiled and said, "Yes, yes. I also think that the servants are babbling nonsense. Crown Princess, don't worry. I've already punished them. I guarantee that they won't say another word in the future." Arbor glanced at her coldly. There was a trace of cold light in her pitch-black eyes. When her gaze fell on Chen Baojia, she suddenly felt an extreme chill. Arbor curled her lips and looked at her meaningfully. "Li Hongchuan's godson was sent by you to test me." This was an affirmative sentence. There was no doubt in his tone. Chen Baojia's whole body suddenly stiffened. "What do you think?" The little Crown Princess glanced at her coldly and asked expressionlessly, "You deliberately sent some cold food over to see if I would get angry? Or do you want to test the limits of my anger? Are you satisfied now?" Li Hongchuan's matter had not even spread within the palace. How could she, the daughter of the Qin family, know about it? It wouldn't be believable if she said she didn't do it. Chen Baojia smacked her lips and suddenly giggled. She twisted her body and said, "Crown Princess, you really know how to joke. You know better than anyone whether I'm joking or not," Arbor said coldly. Chen Baojia felt a chill run down her spine. She couldn't help but take a step back. With a panicked expression, she said, "Princess Consort, Crown Princess, Baojia will send the two of you here. I won't disturb you two any longer." She was going to back out just like that. Xiao Mu took a step forward and abruptly blocked her path. "What do you want to probe? Are you trying to test the limits of my tolerance? Then I can tell you directly." Arbor said coldly, "Any deception or concealment can step on my limits. I will make her live a life worse than death." Chen Baojia's body trembled. She hurriedly bowed and turned around, feeling like she was fleeing. Arbor watched her departing figure and snorted. Chapter 2553. This Chen Baojia is Empress Dowager Chen's grandniece. Princess Consort Kong asked with a puzzled expression, when did you have a conflict with Chen Baojia? Empress Dowager Chen is very protective of her own people. She wasn't afraid of being protective of her people since Chen Baojia wasn't in the right anyway. On the other hand, a mere daughter of the Chen family could command little uniquely from the kitchen. This was something worth pondering. It was obvious that Li Hongchuan was someone close to the Empress Dowager. Qiao Mu creased her brows, intuitively feeling that something was off. She had no contact with Chen Baojia, and there was no conflict of interest. Why would she suddenly reach out to test her? Wasn't this point worthy of further investigation? As soon as this question popped up, Princess Consort Kong sighed and said, no wonder this Miss Chen would target you. She and the second miss of the Zhongli family stayed in the Eastern Palace until the last moment when they had no choice but to be taken back by their family. The second miss of the Zhongli family and this Miss Chen have always thought that they were very special. Darling Qiao looked curiously at Princess Consort Kong, a bad premonition emerging in her heart. Imperial Aunt, what do you mean? You're saying that this Chen Baojia and that Zhongli Ji Wei have been staying in the Crown Prince's estate in the Eastern Palace for a while? Princess Consort Kong, oh, crap. Did she say something wrong? Ha. Princess Consort Kong laughed awkwardly, wanting to salvage the situation for Mo Lian. What Crown Prince's estate in the Eastern Palace? You probably heard wrong. Imperial Aunt. The little fellow's serious expression made Princess Consort Kong extremely adorable. Okay, Imperial Aunt will tell you everything. Don't be anxious. This isn't a big deal. Our Mo Lian has already resolved it. Princess Consort Kong immediately surrendered, showing that she had no resistance to cute things. Thus, on the way back, Princess Consort Kong told the little crown princess in detail. She started from when Madame Goen sent the beauties to when Third Fu posted a notice in the central square, asking the officials to take all the noble ladies back. Finally, he talked about how Zhongli Ji Wei and Chen Baojia stayed in the crown prince's mansion for nearly 7 days. When General Zhongli arrived, Zhongli's second miss, who was late, was almost killed by third young Master Fu. Princess Consort Kong even gossiped to the young crown princess about the many versions of the story that were circulating in the imperial capital. What did he mean by digging up second Miss Zhongli's experience of enduring humiliation in the crown prince's residence? The crown prince was so unreasonable that he was praised for being ruthless even before he returned to the Divine Land. He was known throughout the Divine Land. What did he mean by waiting for Miss Chen to counterattack and enter the crown prince's residence? This kind of messy gossip had been flying all over the capital for nearly a month or two. Arbor! There was such a thing. Mo Lian had not said a single word to her. When she was not around, a demoness actually went to the crown prince's residence. When Sir Jojo came back to his senses in anger, he realized that he was not at the entrance of the Eastern Palace. Instead, he had followed Princess Consort Kong to Changle Avenue and had already entered the second gate of the Crown Prince's residence. Jojo blinked his large eyes and looked around curiously. Imperial Aunt. Hey, Imperial Aunt will go change first. You sit here for a while. Why don't you go change as well? Princess Consort Kong said with a smile. No need. Then wait for Imperial Aunt. Let's wait for your Imperial Uncle to come back and have a good meal together tonight. Chapter 2554. The little fellow nodded and sat there a bit angrily. Her mind was still replaying Princess Consort Kang's words. Miss Chen counterattacked and entered the Crown Prince's estate. Bah! A woman like Chen Baojia, in her dreams. She now fully understood what Chen Baojia was trying to probe. She wanted to test her temperament. Presumably, they thought that she, a village girl who followed the crown prince from the lower star domain to the divine province, should be a meek and submissive soft bun with no temper. She didn't expect the little fellow to be a lit firecracker that could explode a person into nothingness at any moment. If she had a soft temperament, this Miss Chen would probably use all kinds of methods to forcefully approach her and then slowly scheme. Chen Baojia should be especially regretting that lousy mouth of hers right now. She gave away some clues and let her see through the truth. The little fellow scrunched up her little face angrily and rubbed the sleeve in her hands. When Lu Yiran walked in indignantly, she just happened to see this otherworldly handsome face. Her chest ached from anger as soon as she saw him. After all, she had entered the palace with Princess Consort Kang. Yet when she came back, she didn't see Princess Consort Kang's carriage at all when she left the palace gates. When she turned back to ask Miss Chen, she found out that Princess Consort Kang had already left with the crown princess in a carriage. Lu Yiran was so angry that her face and stomach hurt, and her entire body involuntarily clamored with painful hatred. Princess Consort Kang actually abandoned her in the palace like this. Was she shameless? This was something that had never happened before. Princess Consort Kang adopted her. Although they weren't very close because of their incompatible personalities, Princess Consort Kang still gave her enough face in front of outsiders. But now, Princess Consort Kang actually directly threw her away and intimately brought this stoic-faced crown Prince Consort back. Lu Yiran was so angry that her mouth was crooked. Her lips trembled as she pointed at Arbor. What are you sitting here for? Arbor looked back at her and said calmly, waiting for Imperial Aunt. We'll eat dinner together tonight. Who's eating with you? Lu Yiran shouted, but immediately realized that she had misspoken. She glared fiercely at Arbor, and before Arbor could react, she rushed out of the door and ran all the way to her courtyard. Arbor looked at her back in disdain but didn't say anything. What was there for her to be calculative with a fool whose IQ hadn't fully grown yet? In the evening, the old prince returned as expected. Princess Consort Kang hurriedly pulled Arbor over with a smile and personally introduced him to the old prince. The old prince was very happy. After talking with Arbor for a while, he felt even more satisfied. Thus, the couple had Sir Jojo stay behind to have a meal together. Lu Yiran was sitting at the table like a cold machine, constantly releasing cold air. However, the three of them treated her as if she was invisible, minding their own business and completely ignoring Lu Yiran's existence. Right at this moment, the steward jogged in. He wiped the sweat on his head and hastily said, "Reporting to Your Highness, Princess Consort, His Highness the Crown Prince has arrived." The carriage has already arrived at the door. Princess Consort Kang was startled. The old prince couldn't help but laugh and scold. He threw down his chopsticks and walked out. This little bastard. He must be here to find a wife. How long has it been, and he's already here? Chapter 2555. Princess Consort Kang couldn't help but burst into laughter. She nodded and said, "Of course. I'll go meet this little brat." The old prince had an odd expression on his face as he winked at Princess Consort Kang. This little brat, ever since he came back, he hasn't stepped out of the main door. He's been hiding in the Eastern Palace and won't see anyone. If I hadn't kidnapped his wife here today, I wouldn't have been able to see him. Lu Yiran raised her eyes in surprise and looked towards the door. His Highness the Crown Prince was here. As they spoke, Mo Lien had already strode in. At that moment, the old prince had just reached the door, and the two of them almost bumped into each other. The old prince couldn't help but scold, "Brat, you're running so fast." Everyone in the hall, only someone like the old prince, who didn't abstain from meat and vegetables, dared to call His Highness the Crown Prince a brat. Mo Lien immediately saw his wife sitting next to Princess Consort Kong. The little fellow's mouth was stuffed with food. She raised her head to glance at him, then snorted at him and actually looked away. Not good. Prince Mo's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly wanted to walk around the old prince and head inside. His wife was fine when she left this morning. Why was she suddenly ignoring him now? Something must have happened today. Prince Kong blocked Mo Lien and patted him hard on the shoulder. Brat, don't you see your uncle? Mo Lien's mouth twitched. To be honest, he really hadn't seen this old man. He looked up and saw a hale and hearty middle-aged man who was close to 50 years old glaring at him. Mo Lien greets Imperial Uncle. Prince Mo helplessly curtsied. Stinky brat, you only see your wife. Prince Kong fumed. Look at this good-for-nothing. Your imperial aunt is only inviting the crown princess over for a meal. Look at how anxious you are. Looking at how he was rushing to Prince Kang's estate, he must have rushed over as soon as he received the news. How could he have such a stupid eldest nephew? Didn't they just get married not long ago? He was completely taken advantage of. Wouldn't he be a slave to his wife in the future? TSK, the more he looked at this stupid face, the angrier he got. He was practically carved from the same mold as his father. They were all so stupid. Prince Mo was dumbfounded. He didn't know if it was just his imagination. He felt that the way the old prince looked at him was a little strange, as if he was looking at an idiot. Was that even possible? He was Prince Mo, known to the whole world as the brilliant and talented Prince Mo. Imperial Uncle, don't block your nephew's way. Mo Lien hurriedly bypassed Prince Kong, who was blocking her way. She hurried to the round table and squeezed her way to Jojo's side and sat down. Mo Lien reached out to hold his wife's hand. She felt wronged. Jojo, why aren't you coming home? Mr. Jojo looked unhappy and looked at him from head to toe. Why didn't you tell me? What? About Qin Baojia and Zhongli Jiwei. His Highness the Crown Prince was at a loss. He had never heard of these two people's names. The old prince was amused when he heard this. He picked up his chopsticks to pick up some food and hurriedly explained to the Crown Prince, Hey, I know. Aren't they the women that the National Security Agency sent to your estate? These two people, one is old Chen's daughter, and the other is from General Zhongli's estate. I heard that they stayed at the Crown Prince's estate for several days and refused to leave. In the end, it was that little brat Fu San who drew his sword and wanted to kill them that they were taken home. Little brat, I say, you really didn't do it properly. Night watch, night watch, night watch. The monthly votes were over 2,000, and tomorrow was also 10 chapters later. Chapter 2556. The old prince's gloating expression was truly an eyesore. Prince Mo thought for a long while before he recalled that it was true. This was all the trouble that the old woman from the National Security Agency had caused for her. At that time, he had asked Third Fu to deal with it and had chased all the women away. So now what kind of trouble had arisen? Prince Mo instantly felt an inexplicable sense of crisis. Thinking back to what his wife had said earlier, he suddenly understood something and hurriedly said, I don't even know if the women sent by the National Security Agency are round or flat. After I asked Third Fu to deal with them, I forgot about it myself. Jojo, I didn't hide it from you. Really? In all honesty, he really didn't take this matter to heart at all. Sir Jojo thought about it and agreed. Looking at this man's blank expression just now, he must have forgotten about this matter long ago. A bunch of vulgar women didn't have the right to make his lotus remember. Humph. The little fellow's tense little face relaxed slightly. She glanced at him from the corner of her eyes and snorted softly. Crown Prince Mo hastily rubbed her small hand. He understood this little one very well. Don't look at how her small face was still taut right now. Compared to when she first entered the room, the oppressive atmosphere around her was much more relaxed now. The old prince observed the young couple as he picked up food. He secretly disdained him in his heart. This little Mo looks quite strong, but he's just a paper tiger in front of his wife. Useless fellow, he's a disgrace to the Mo family. While the old prince was disdainful of little Mo, he had completely forgotten that he was worse than a paper tiger in front of Princess Kong. That's enough. Looking at you two is an eyesore to my eyes. The old prince waved his hand and said to the attendant beside him, "Give this prince a bowl of rice." Mo Lien's eyes twitched. He turned to look at the old prince. "Imperial uncle, this is the first time you've met my wife. Have you given her a present?" The old prince fumed with anger. "Didn't your imperial aunt already give it to her? Don't think that I didn't see it. That bracelet is on the little guy's wrist. Imperial aunt is imperial aunt, and you are you." Mo Lien pursed her lips. "Imperial uncle is so rich and has so many houses. How can you be so stingy? If you don't give me this greeting gift, my wife won't call you imperial uncle anymore. Bastard. Wife slave. Serves you right for being eaten alive by the little stoic. I will never sympathize with you in the future." Mo Lufeng scolded him in his heart. He took out a dozen pieces of paper from his ring and slapped them on the table. Take them, take them." It was only then that Mo Lien happily accepted it and stuffed it into his wifey's hands. "Chow chow, keep it well, keep it well. When I have time, I can accompany you to take a look at the deeds to these manors, shops, and gardens. Oh, by the way, Uncle Emperor, I heard that you have the title deed of a hot spring villa. Is it inside?" The corner of Mo Liufeng's eyes twitched violently. He wished he could slap this bastard to death. "The title deed to Half Moon Cliff's splendid villa is inside," the old prince said huffily. When the little fellow heard this, she knew that this must be a pretty nice garden. She had never heard of this Half Moon Cliff before. Perhaps it was rather famous in the Mo Kingdom capital. Her expression relaxed again, and she was a bit happy. "Imperial uncle, do you have fields?" Mo Lufeng, Princess Consort Kong laughed loudly and nodded while holding Arbor's small hand. "Yes, yes, yes. Your imperial uncle has a lot of fields. There's a large field at the foot of Half Moon Cliff. How about I give it all to you?" Chapter 2557. Sir Jojo nodded happily. When she had first arrived in Dragonflame City, she had been living in poverty. Now, with her royal uncle's gifts, she could finally live comfortably. At this moment, Sir Jojo had completely forgotten that Mo Lien's father was the ruler of this mainland. Mo Lufeng had the habit of eating rice for every meal. If he skipped a meal, he would feel famished. However, when the rice was served, Sir Jojo's nose twitched and he looked at Mo Lufeng in surprise. The old prince felt a little uncomfortable under this little fellow's gaze. He yelled at her, "What are you looking at? Hurry up and eat, then scram." Princess Consort Kong chuckled and personally scooped a bowl of soup for the old prince. She whispered to Jojo, "Your royal uncle is angry out of humiliation." Arbor nodded his little head. Meanwhile, Louis Ran, who was sitting at the corner of the round table and being ignored by everyone, was so angry that she was trembling. From the moment Crown Prince Mo walked through the door, Louis Ran's infatuated gaze hadn't left him once. That kind of intense impact to her soul caused her entire soul to clamor and tremble. At that moment, Louis Ran felt that her heart, which had been sealed for 20 years, seemed to have seen the light. All of a sudden, her entire heart was lit up. When she read those storybooks in the past, she always felt that the story of the meeting between a scholar and a beauty was very fake and made people scoff at it. It was only today that Louis Rand felt that perhaps what was described in those storybooks might not be completely fake. At least, the feeling that her heart was moved today was very real. Louis Rand was about to stand up and bow, and show her face in front of the Crown Prince so that he could see her. However, she saw the Crown Prince stride over and sit down beside the Crown Princess. After that, the situation quickly spiraled out of her control. She watched as the old prince took out house deeds, land deeds from his space ring and tossed them to the Crown Princess as a meeting gift. Louis Rand was so angry that her teeth were sore and her cheeks hurt. She could not recover. Why? 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 She wanted to scream madly. She didn't have a single one of these house deeds, farmland deeds, and land deeds. Why should she, as their adopted daughter, not get anything? Now, without even asking for her opinion, they were going to give this property to an outsider. In addition, there were 5 people at the table. She was like a little pitiful turtle curled up at the side of the table while the other 3 people's topics revolved around the Crown Prince Consort. How could she not be angry and hate this injustice and clench her hands until they bled? The hatred in Louis Rand's heart was overflowing, and she could not suppress the anger that was about to erupt from her chest. Her body was shrouded in a layer of gloomy chi, constantly emitting a low pressure, which scared the little servant girl standing beside her. What was wrong with her young miss? Ever since Wang Fei had brought this adopted daughter back from the Liu family, Miss would occasionally give off a dark and gloomy presence. When he didn't speak, he sat there like a spirit behind his back. His eyes were also very gloomy. It was as if black gas was being emitted from the inside of his body. It was very uncomfortable to look at. Although Miss would occasionally complain that the old prince and old princess consort were unfair to her and that they didn't dote on her enough, she only dared to complain behind her back. Usually, she could only play a little tricks, and her cultivation was very ordinary. So if you really wanted her to do something, she really didn't have the ability to do it. Chapter 2558. This was a coward with a dark heart but not a dark life. Her personal maidservant wanted to remind her young miss not to wear down the old prince and the princess consort's patience. If she angered the 2 of them, they would directly send her young miss to the Liu family and not support this young miss in the future. Wouldn't that be even more of a loss? Louis Rand did not have the life to turn dark at all. She could only grumble about many things in her heart. Imperial Aunt, this is for you. Sir Jojo took out a small white porcelain bottle from his inner world and placed it in front of Princess Consort Kong. The princess consort could not help but be slightly startled. She said with a smile, "Didn't I return the gift before?" "It's not the same." Arbor blinked and urged her, "This is a black-grade beautifying pill. Take it now." When Louis Rand heard that, she suddenly sneered. "Do you think Mother has never taken a beautifying pill before? Mother has even taken an immortal-grade beautifying pill before. But what use was that? Princess Consort Kong could not cultivate after all, so she aged faster than ordinary cultivators. She was only in her early 50s now, but her body was already plump. Moreover, the wrinkles on her face were increasing day by day. This woman self-righteously took out a black-grade beautifying pill to curry favor with the princess consort. It was simply laughable. Arbor rolled his eyes at Louis Rand, then said with an indifferent expression, "If the amount of medicinal ingredients is not enough, or the refining technique is not good enough, even a god-grade beautifying pill is still useless." "You!" Louis Rand glared at him. Arbor had already shifted his gaze away and only urged Princess Consort Kong. "Imperial Aunt, try it." "Okay." Princess Consort Kong smiled as she took a beautifying pill from the small jade bottle. Louis Ran sneered at the side, deliberately mystifying. Could it be that this woman from the lower star domain had medicinal pills that were better than their divine continents? She did not believe it. Louis Ran snorted, then looked towards Princess Consort Kong. She originally wanted to say a few bad things about the crown princess in front of Princess Kong. But when she saw the two rather obvious wrinkles and indentations on Princess Consort Kang's blissful face slowly diminishing at a visible rate, her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. No, it was impossible. Was this a demonic technique? Otherwise, even a god-tier face-preserving pill wouldn't be able to fight against aging so quickly. She had also eaten the beautifying pills sold by Zhenhua Workshop. But if they ate it, they would still grow wrinkles, and they would still grow fat. Princess Consort Kong raised her hand to touch her own face. She also felt that her face seemed to have become much smoother. She couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, This wasn't an illusion, right? Quickly, Dan Ling, bring a mirror for this princess to see. The maidservant named Dan Ling giggled as she hurriedly brought a mirror over. She cried out in surprise, Wang Fei, it's not an illusion. It's true. Your skin looks a lot smoother, and it's shining like a pearl. Yeah. This really is a beautifying pill. Princess Consort Kong looked joyfully at Sir Jojo sitting beside her. This beautifying pill's effects are so good. Child, why did you give it to me? I'm already so old, and I'm already like this no matter what beautifying pill I eat. Isn't it better if you keep it for yourself? Sir Jojo blinked. Prince Mo, who was sitting at the side, couldn't help but twitch the corners of his eyes. Sure enough, he saw his wifey take out a small stew pot. Chapter 2559. There was a whole pot of pills inside, a whole pot full of them. They were all Jojo's products, black-grade beautifying pills. Sir Jojo said with a puzzled expression, Imperial Aunt, I have plenty here. Do you still want to eat more? But one of these black-grade beautifying pills should be enough. It can resist aging for 100 years. Eating more won't be good for the body. Prince Kong and his wife, they felt like their eyeballs were about to fall out, okay? Why did they feel like this stoic-faced little fellow, although she didn't smile from beginning to end, was especially comical when she did things? Cough. Mo Lien coughed lightly and hurriedly had the little fellow stuff the pot of pills back into her inner world. This child wasn't keeping a low profile again, was she? Prince Kong asked in a strange tone, Did you refine these by yourself? Emichim, you're an alchemist. Emichim. What's your current alchemist level? Mystic. Fuck, a black-grade alchemist who wasn't even 16 years old. Prince Kong rolled his eyes at the sky and immediately wanted to calm down. Moreover, he suddenly felt like he couldn't continue the conversation. What exactly was going on? It must have been hard on his old wife to chat with the little crown princess all the way from the Plum Blossom banquet. What exactly was there to talk about? The old prince was puzzled. According to the little fellow's style of speaking, what exactly was there to talk about? Your Highness, isn't Jojo very cute? Princess Consort Kong grinned as she held Arbor's small hand and boasted to the old prince, Your Mo family doesn't have such a cute girl. I don't think the girls from your brother's families are all that great. None of them can compare to our Jojo. Mo Lien deeply agreed. The old prince, his old wife had inexplicably become the crown princess's die-hard fan. For some reason, the old prince felt faintly sorrowful. However, he was still very happy to see the princess consort glowing and exuding confidence. Wang Fei seemed to have become 10 years younger. Even the white hair on her temples had disappeared. This profound level beautifying pill that the little girl refined, needless to say, the effect was really the difference between heaven and earth when compared to those trashy goods circulating on the market. Brat, you have a good eye for finding a wife. The old prince snorted and reluctantly praised Prince Mo. He poked at the rice in his bowl with his chopsticks and suddenly felt like he didn't want to eat it. The little girl suddenly took out a small undelicate rice bucket from her inner world. A faint fragrance immediately drifted into the old prince's nose, causing him to involuntarily sniff. His eyes lit up as he asked, "What is this smell? Why does it smell so good? Is it rice?" "Yes." The little girl opened the lid of the rice bucket, and the fragrance immediately spread out. The old prince's appetite was aroused, and he was almost drooling. "Oh, you little kid, really? Why did he hide such good food? Quick, give Imperial Uncle a bowl." The old prince moved quickly to the side of the round table, picked up a spatula, and dug into the rice bucket. "Why is your rice so delicious?" The old prince was also a weirdo. He wasn't at all bothered by the fact that the little girl had brought a bucket of rice into her inner world. He was just curious about what kind of rice it was. Speaking of which, he was a big shot who had eaten quite a bit of rice. For someone like him who had to eat rice for every meal, he was very particular about the quality of the rice. "Because this is holy rice," the little fellow said proudly. Holy rice. He had heard of ancient holy weapons, but he had never heard of holy rice. Chapter 2560. This was undeniably holy rice. Planted in holy land and nurtured with holy water, what else could it be other than holy rice? "Where did you buy it?" The old prince liked the soft, glutinous, and fragrant texture from the first bite. He almost swallowed his own tongue in one bite. He was someone who could eat 3 bowls of white rice with even salted vegetables today. He finished 5 bowls of rice in one go. Later, the princess consort reminded him not to overeat, so he resentfully stopped. "You can't buy it anywhere," Arbor said calmly. "I planted it." The old prince immediately moved his stool closer to Arbor. He felt that Mo Lien, who was between him and Jojo, was particularly obstructive, so he pushed him back. He leaned his head closer and revealed a rare cheerful smile. "Jojo, can you share some of this rice with Imperial Uncle?" Mo Lien, Imperial Uncle, was so close to her, yet he looked so disdainful. She really didn't know if she was his nephew. "Put it in a storage talisman." Arbor thought for a moment, then nodded. "Storage talisman." The old prince stilled, then asked in confusion, "I don't have a storage talisman." Arbor turned to look at Princess Consort Kong. "It's with Imperial Aunt." The princess consort was also startled. Then she thought of something and had Danling bring over the square box that the crown princess had given her. When she opened it, she saw that a blue storage talisman made of ebony was lying quietly in the box. Next to it was a box about the size of a rouge. Inside it was a small, light red pill. Prince Kong was truly amazed this time. He reached out to pick up the ebony piece and examined it carefully. He asked excitedly, "This thing? It's really a storage talisman? Can the princess consort use it?" Arbor nodded. Yes. The princess consort had given her the exquisite fire brocade bracelet as a space container. Considering that it would be inconvenient if she didn't have a space, Arbor had given the storage talisman to the princess consort as a return gift. The red pill was the warm jade pill, which was used to treat the body's cold illness. The princess consort's body had been cold since she was young, so eating it could suppress it for a period of time. What she thought at that time was that she couldn't refuse an elder's gift. Since she had taken away the protective bracelet that protected her from the cold, then she should help Wang Fei cure her cold illness. The princess consort had never used a storage talisman before, so she was extremely curious. Under Arbor's guidance, the princess dripped a drop of blood to open the talisman. Sure enough, she could use the talisman as usual. Imperial Ant, don't worry and use it. After a while, I'll make a jade talisman for you. You can wear it on your body as a pendant and it won't be conspicuous. The old prince understood the meaning behind the little girl's words. He stuttered, You did it. Yes. You're a talisman master. Yes. Mo Lien's lips twitched. Strange, why does this conversation sound so familiar? The old man was speechless. Why did he feel that today's stimulation was a little too big? Who was the one who nagged in front of him that the little crown princess was just a village girl from the lower star domain? How could she be worthy of His Highness the Crown Prince? They even hoped that he would go to the emperor and slander him. They hoped that he could help His Highness the Crown Prince resolve this annoying marriage so that he could find another noble lady or a valiant woman who was worthy of the Crown Prince. These people should really come over and see if the little Crown Princess, who was both a pill refiner and talisman master, was as unbearable as they thought. If I listened to them, I'd be out of my mind. The Princess Consort was really far-sighted. Pill refiners and talisman masters were just not well known yet. It would be a fool not to befriend such a genius. Chapter 2561. The old prince happily let the princess consort use a storage talisman to catch the half-empty holy rice. He was smiling so widely that the corners of his eyes were wrinkled. Ignore him. Princess Consort Kong took Arbor's hand and smiled as she said, Jojo, why don't you stay at Imperial Ant's place tonight? Mo Lien's eyelids twitched, and he promptly declined politely. Auntie, Chow Chow and I have just returned to the Eastern Palace, and there are still some things that need to be put back in place. Let's visit Uncle and Auntie again after we've taken care of everything. Princess Consort Kong reluctantly sent Arbor and Mo Lien to the door. It was cold and windy outside, so Arbor told her to stop. However, the old prince insisted on seeing them out personally. Both of them were smart enough to know that the old prince had something to say to them. After they exited the hall, the two of them left. Arbor looked at the old man with a half-smile. He was not very tall, but his shoulders were very broad. He was a cultivator who was about to enter the immortal realm. Compared to ordinary people, he certainly looked much younger. However, his current appearance was more than 10 years older than his actual age of more than 50. He could not even compare to ordinary people his age. Ahem. The old prince coughed awkwardly and blushed. Lass, don't tell your imperial aunt about this, okay? Mo Lien did not know what the two of them were talking about. She glanced at the old prince in confusion. Why did his uncle's tone have a hint of awkwardness and pleading? Why? Arbor was almost muttering to himself. The old prince seemed a little embarrassed by the question. He put on airs in front of the two juniors and coughed coldly. What do you mean why? No reason. All right, you two brats, get out of my sight. Mo Lufeng flew into a rage out of humiliation. He chased the young couple out of the door, caught up with the carriage, and immediately had Steward Wang close the door. Mo Lien could not help but be taken aback by his sudden change in attitude. What happened? Prince Mo couldn't help but ask after boarding the carriage. Why did she feel that her uncle was moody? He had no idea what was going on. Jojo snorted at him. Mo Lien felt like her heart was about to melt. She quickly reached out and pulled the little girl into her arms. She lowered her head and kissed her on the forehead. Jojo, don't be angry, okay? I'll tell you everything in the future, no matter if it's big or small or boring. Mine. The little guy raised his head and solemnly warned the man, mine. Mo Lien could not help but laugh. She hugged her and nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes, I'm yours. From top to bottom, inside and out, even a strand of my hair belongs to you, okay? Only then was the little fellow satisfied. She felt a little better and nodded. It's good that you know. Mo Lien could not help but kiss her tender little face twice. Then can you tell me now, what were you and Uncle talking about? Uncle was eating an aging pill with rice. Were you surprised? Were you surprised? When the bowl of rice was served, Sir Jojo could smell that something was wrong. To put it bluntly, this aging pill was actually a type of poison. If one took one every 7 days, it could imperceptibly change a person's appearance. Simply put, it would make a person age little by little. In the beginning, Lin Mingya found the old prince pleasing to the eye because of the existence of the princess. Chapter 2562. But now, Lady Qiao Qiao was in awe of the old prince. It was easy to say that I would grow old with you, but it was extremely difficult to do. Mo Lufeng was a cultivator, but Lu Lanyun was just an ordinary person. She would definitely grow old before him. No matter how many beautifying pills she took or how many beautifying skincare products she used, she couldn't stop her body from aging as time passed. Mo Lufeng secretly took the aging pills and grew old with his wife. If his wife had 2 more wrinkles on her face, he would work hard to have 4 more. If his wife gained weight, he would work hard to gain weight as well. He would even look much older than his wife. This was love. He would fulfill his promise without hesitation. He would grow old with her. Sir Jojo sniffled and nuzzled his head in Mo Lien's arms. I'm a little touched. While hugging his wifey, Mo Lien also recovered from his shock and inwardly mused, Uncle is truly a man. Looks like the Mo family isn't all crooked after all, Arbor commented. Prince Mo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't judge us by the standards of the Crown Prince of Jianping. There are many people in the Mo family who are as good as me. I understand. It's the same principle as how bad bamboo produces good bamboo shoots. Arbor nodded seriously. Mo Lien, these words sounded a bit strange. The evil bamboo here couldn't be referring to his father, right? Auntie's cold must have been brought out of her mother's womb. Although it's not easy to treat, it's not completely impossible. Miss Chiao waved her little fists in high spirits. Tomorrow, I'll write a prescription for Imperial Uncle and ask him to go buy the herbs first. After Imperial Aunt takes the warm jade pill and her body stabilizes a little, I'll give her acupuncture and medicine. Thank you for your hard work, Jojo. Mo Lien rubbed his chin against her little head. Arbor reached out to touch his chin. It's nothing. It's what I should do. The princess consort was so good. She also hoped that her life would get better and better. Jojo. Mo Lien's eyes deepened, and he couldn't help but lower his head. His thin lips gently covered her lips, and they were entangled for a while. His little wife was so wonderful that he didn't want to let go of her for even a second at this time. In a remote corner of the Mu family's Tinglan courtyard, a big storm was brewing. The moment Xiao Yingchen returned home, she collapsed in her mother's arms like a deflated ball. She wept and repeatedly recounted the events that happened in the afternoon. Madame Li was so angry that her whole body trembled. She sternly shouted, "She really dares to say that. Mom, what should we do now?" Xiao Yingchuan's eyes reddened in fear. That bitch wants to deal with me, Mom. That slut really sent someone to bring a message to the Mu family's patriarch. She said that if the Mu family doesn't deal with me within 2 days, she will personally deal with me. Mother, what should we do now, Mother? I don't want to die. Qiao Tsong raised his eyebrows and said angrily, I already told you not to let your imagination run wild, but you didn't listen. See if something has happened now. Eldest sister, it's one thing for mom to be brainless, but why are you so brainless as well? Tell me, how many times have you suffered at the hands of Arbor? You've forgotten the pain after the scars have healed. I think you have a pig's brain. Shut up. Madam Lee angrily shouted. She hugged her daughter and shrieked, that bitch Arbor, she's not giving us a way out. The three of us have to die. Chapter 2563. Since that's the case, what else is there to say? The three of us will fight it out with her. Let's see who can't win. Madame Nelly shrieked and flung Chao Ing-chun aside. She picked up a kitchen knife and ran out of the kitchen. Chao Ing-chun was dumbfounded. Chao Tsong was so angry that his nose was crooked. He stepped forward and stopped Madame Nelly. Mom, what are you trying to do now? Do you think you can defeat the crown princess with a kitchen knife? Was there something wrong with this old woman's brain? Chao Tsong seriously doubted whether it was a wise decision to follow this brainless mother and daughter to the Mu family of the Divine Province. They already said that impersonation wouldn't last long. As long as this person from Arbor appeared, all the impersonation would be exposed. Yet the mother and daughter pair were immersed in the Mu family's extravagant riches and honor. How could they be willing to walk out on their own? She's already the high and mighty crown princess. Damn bitch, she still won't let us go. Aw. Look at what she's doing. Is that humane? Aw. She's the crown princess. Who wouldn't snatch it from her? Why did she come to snatch your older sister's status as the Mu family's young miss? Is there something wrong with her? She's the crown princess. Does she need the status of the Mu family's young miss? Why can't she let your older sister enjoy life? Your older sister is her elder sister from the same clan. Everyone's bloodline is natural. What's the meaning of this? Aw. She just won't let us have a good life. If she were to stand in front of me right now, I'd slap her to death. This bitch was taught by that petty Wei Ziqin. She's an unpresentable thing. Chao Tsong was dumbfounded. Even if the person before him was his mother, he had to admit that he was also dumbfounded by his mother's blatant bandit talk. Mom, she's the Mu family's young miss. How could she have a natural bloodline with us? She's the one who's related to the Mu family by blood. Chao Tsong was speechless. His mother actually had the cheek to say that someone else came to snatch his older sister's status as the Mu family's young miss. Even a man like him blushed when he heard this. However, I've been a village woman for decades. Throwing a tantrum and rolling on the ground, I only know these few tricks. From the bottom of his heart, Chao Tsong did not want to provoke that she-devil Arbor again. According to him, since they had already been seen through, it was better to leave the Mu family as soon as possible so that both sides would not be in a good situation. Unfortunately, the right to speak was in his mother's hands, so there was nothing he could do. He wanted to persuade his mother again, but when he saw Madame Lee holding a kitchen knife and looking for someone to kill, he felt a headache coming on. When Mu Qingya came over, she saw such a noisy scene. A trace of disdain slid across her eyes as she coldly looked at the three clown-like cripples in front of her and coldly said, "Pack up your things and move out of Ting Lan's courtyard immediately." "Why should I?" Madame Lee shrieked like a hen whose neck was being strangled. "Why?" "Because you deceived the Mu family by pretending to be the Mu family's daughter and swindled food, drinks, and resources from the Mu family," Mu Qingya said bluntly. "Now her identity has been exposed. What else is there to say?" Madame Lee rolled her eyes and hurriedly said with an apologetic smile, "Madam, you can't just believe that our young miss is an impostor based on that woman's one-sided words. What other evidence do you want?" Mu Qingya shouted angrily. Chapter 2564. You probably don't know, but our Mu family has a kind of bloodline talisman that can detect whether the Mu family's descendants are of the clan's bloodline. Mu Qingya sneered. This madam will give you face and let you pack your things and scram. If the bloodline talisman really detects your identities as imposters, Mu Qingya harumphed, then you will be sentenced to death for the crime of messing with the clan's bloodline. Xiao Ying-chun widened her eyes in panic and retreated several steps in fright. Her back bumped into a tree. Madame Neili also panicked. Her voice trembled as she tried to put on a brave front. You're bluffing. Mu Qingya looked at the three people before her as though she was looking at clowns. She sneered. Don't you think this kind of lie is too despicable? This kind of lie can be exposed in minutes, yet you can still bite the bullet and continue. All right, I don't want to waste my breath with you. Pack your things and scram. Mu Qingya coldly glanced at Madame Neili, who was standing at the front. Madame Neili, this stupid woman, was brandishing a kitchen knife in her hand. How laughable. Did she think that in the current world, holding a kitchen knife in one's hand could decide the fate of the world? Mu Qingya's face was cold as she glanced at the group of servants behind her. The servants who had been brought to Tinglan's small courtyard were all rough servants who were very strong. They quickly twisted Madame Neili's arm, snatched her kitchen knife, and threw it on the ground. Madame Neili started to wail, and her wails could be heard throughout the entire Mu residence. Mu Qingya disdainfully swept a glance at them and didn't say anything more. She directly had the servants drag the three people out of the door. Qiao Tsong was better off since he was willing to leave on his own. Seeing that he was tactful, the servants didn't catch him. His mother and sister, on the other hand, were crying and throwing a tantrum as they were dragged out like little chicks. Along the way, they attracted countless servants who pointed and gossiped. When they reached the Mu estate's back door, Xiao Ying-chun immediately saw Mu Xingchun's tall figure. She couldn't help but wail and shriek, Big brother, save me, big brother. Mu Jingrui looked at Xiao Ying-chun like he was looking at an idiot and couldn't resist saying, You've already completely exposed your identity, so how can you still have the face to call Xingchun big brother? Stardust is not your big brother. We don't even know your name. Seventh uncle, there's no need to speak to her. Mu Xingchun coldly glanced at her and indifferently said, Just throw her out. If they were thrown out, the three of them would probably starve to death on the streets in 2 days. After all, Qiao Tsong was just a small mystic cultivator and was basically a cripple. If he had to drag down the mother and daughter who kept making a fuss, I wished them a wonderful life. Go to the central street and post a notice to all the major sects and aristocratic families. Just say that someone is impersonating our Mu family's daughter who has been wandering outside for many years. She doesn't know the general situation and doesn't know etiquette. The Mu family has already cleared out the impostor. Mu Xingchun knew why Mu Qingya was doing this. It was for the sake of the Mu family to send a message to Jojo. It was to make a stand and an attitude. The Mu family did not want to be enemies with the crown princess. The Mu family was obedient. Mu Xingchun took a deep breath and swept a disgusted glance at Xiao Ying-chun and the others. Then, he turned around and crossed the threshold with Mu Jingrui, not sparing Xiao Ying-chun and her daughter another glance. Xiao Ying-chun collapsed on the floor and wailed loudly. She cried so hard that she almost couldn't make a sound, but she was still sobbing and wailing. Chapter 2565. How could Mu Qingya be willing to listen to her wailing? She cursed, Jinx, and ordered the servants to close the courtyard doors, completely blocking the three beggar-like mother and daughter outside the room. Xiao Ying-chun crawled forward and slammed on the door as she wailed, At least let me pack my things. Her change of clothes and jewelry were all in a bundle in the room. If she had known that the Moo family would act so quickly and kick them out of the house, she wouldn't have wailed and wasted so much time with her mother. She would have gone to pack her things long ago. It's over, it's over, it's over. There's nothing left. Xiao Ying-chun collapsed on the stone block in front of the door as though she had lost her parents. She abruptly turned and pounced on the door, slamming it twice as she shrieked, "Open the door! Open the door!" Xiao Tsong coldly glared at the mother and daughter and shouted angrily, "Are you satisfied now? Living like this, there was no way he could go on like this. If you want to make a fuss, go ahead. I'm leaving first." Xiao Ying-chun abruptly turned her head and stared at Xiao Tsong, flabbergasted. Xiao Tsong didn't even look back. He was a man of his word and turned to walk toward the back alley of the Moo estate. He was no longer willing to stay by this foolish mother and daughter's side and suffer misfortune again and again. They could only rely on themselves in the future on how they would walk and how they would end up. Although he was very bewildered by the current situation, everyone had to find their own path in life. He couldn't always rely on others. Xiao Tsong, who had learned from his mistakes and deeply understood that Arbor wasn't a place to be trifled with, felt that this matter wouldn't end so easily. Mom and sister were already hopelessly stupid. What awaited Madame Neily and her daughter was probably even bigger trouble. He withdrew and left suavely. Thinking about it later, it was a wise move. He was too weak to take revenge, so he could only silently wish Madame Neily and Xiao Ying-chun the best that they didn't court death themselves. The next afternoon, Princess Consort Kong received a gift from the little crown princess personally delivered by Auntie Jing. It was a beautifying ointment in an exquisite white jade box. There was also a list of medicinal ingredients, which was clearly for the elderly prince. Wang Fei was extremely touched and replied with a lot of food and all kinds of gifts for Aunt Jing to bring back. When Lu Yiran received the news, she could not help but be jealous to death. She threw around and fought in her room for the entire afternoon. She was so angry that she did not even come out to eat. The princess consort didn't spoil her either. It was up to her whether she ate or not. Lu Yiran still hadn't eaten, so Wang Fei asked the kitchen to serve a few side dishes. Lu Yiran would eat in her room. In the afternoon, carts of gifts were sent to the Eastern Palace. When everyone saw that it was Prince Kang's carriage, they couldn't help but be curious and secretly inquire about it. She didn't expect that the relationship between the crown prince and his wife would be so strong as soon as they came back. She heard that the crown princess and Princess Kong had a great chat yesterday and was even invited to Prince Kang's Fu as a guest. Arbor slept until the sun was high in the sky. Just as she finished washing up and getting dressed, she saw Eunuch Chen run in with a face full of joy. "Crown Princess, His Majesty summons you." He was summoned so soon. The little crown princess raised her eyebrows. She had thought that she would be left out for a few more days. "Heh heh, looks like he can't wait to see his son. Where's the crown prince?" Sir Jojo asked. "His Highness the Crown Prince said to have you eat breakfast first. His Highness will be here in a moment." Eunuch Chen grumbled inwardly. "What breakfast? It's going to be lunch soon." The little crown princess was most likely spoiled by His Highness the Crown Prince when she opened her eyes and found fault with His Highness the Crown Prince. The 10th watch ended. Chapter 2566. Ever since the cold porridge incident in the kitchen, the Crown Prince ordered the opening of a small kitchen in the Eastern Palace. He even personally allocated a sum of money to be used to buy fresh ingredients every day. In addition, he also selected a group of extremely skilled cooks to serve the little crown princess. In the past, because the Eastern Palace did not have a master, this small kitchen existed in name only. Now, this small kitchen was bustling with activity. The crown princess was a child who was used to eating 3 meals a day. Every day, she would stir-fry, boil soup, and make desserts. These were all necessary. Today's breakfast consisted of 12 desserts, 4 types of porridge, and 2 types of noodles. How could the little crown princess eat so much? The rest was taken out by Kai Xiao and the rest. Ever since the little crown princess returned, Kai Xiao and the rest felt that their waists had also become much rounder. After eating, Mo Lian still had not returned. The little fellow was a little bored. She took out a book and nestled in an ivory armchair covered with a long velvet blanket. She casually flipped through page by page. When Mo Lian returned, he saw the little fellow curled up and sitting by the window. "Aren't you cold?" Sitting there and enjoying the breeze. Mo Lian walked up and carried his little wife up. He looked at her with a smile. "Did you miss me, Jojo?" "No." Sir Jojo reached out to push his handsome face away and muttered, "We just met this morning." This man's behavior was vile. He woke her up early and even kissed her awake. He insisted on telling her that Jojo was good morning before he was willing to leave. Thinking of this, Sir Jojo could not help but roll his eyes. Mo Lian chuckled and reached out to poke her little face. "You heartless little thing, I've always missed you." Mo Lian set her down and sized up her attire today. She had donned a set of embroidered battle clothes again. Mo Lian secretly laughed in his heart. Every time the little fellow put on the battle suit, it meant that she was ready to fight. Usually, she was used to wearing plain clothes, so it was easy to distinguish her mood. Jojo didn't know that the man had seen through her. She raised her head and asked, "Are we going now?" Mo Lian lowered his head and rubbed the tip of her nose. "Do you want to leave him out for another 2 days?" "Hee, this is the son of the great emperor. Yesterday, Prince Kang's mansion invited us over for a gathering. Both the host and the guest enjoyed themselves. When your father heard the news, he definitely couldn't sit still." Sir Jojo pursed his lips. Your father must be thinking that when the little brat came back, as his father, didn't even have the time to take a look at him. You, as his uncle, took a look at him first. Although the little fellow was too lazy to say anything else, Mo Lian had already understood what she meant. He smiled and pinched her cheeks. You mischievous girl. Let's go. So, holding the little fellow's hand, he walked out of the Eastern Palace and boarded the carriage that had already stopped by the roadside. The carriage followed the spacious palace path and slowly made its way to the extreme palace of the great emperor. In another wing of the imperial study, Mo Liuxing's handsome face was slightly pale. He exerted force on his wrist and crushed several brushes with a crack sound. Hu Dequan, who was accompanying him and serving the brush in ink, had small beads of sweat on his forehead. He could only secretly pray in his heart, hurry up and come, hurry up and come. Two little ancestors, the journey from the Eastern Palace to the Extreme Palace is only a short while. Why are they still nowhere to be seen? Just as Eunuch who was feeling uneasy and uncertain, he heard a young eunuch's voice from outside. Reporting to your majesty, the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess have arrived. Chapter 2567. Hu Dequan heaved a long sigh of relief. The two ancestors had finally arrived. Hu Dequan hurriedly smiled as brilliantly as a flower, jogging to the front of the great emperor. Your Majesty, the Crown Prince and Crown Princess have arrived. Humph. Mo Liuxing snorted coldly, throwing the tattered pen in his hand to the ground. Turning around, he lifted the corner of his robe and sat down on a rosewood-carved throne. Let them scram in. Hu Dequan's mouth twitched, hurriedly opening the door and shouting, summon the Crown Prince and Crown Princess for an audience. So many problems. The young couple ridiculed in their hearts at the same time. Hand in hand, they both stepped through the door and into the great emperor's study. Behind the two, Hudiquan's eyes clearly twitched. He kept feeling that this scene wasn't quite right, but he didn't know what was wrong. The crown prince and crown princess were both dressed in fiery red today. They were really a handsome man and a beautiful woman, very compatible. All right, the two actually walked in hand, directly walking in front of the great emperor. Like two pieces of wood, they stood there without moving. Hudiquan lifted his sleeve to wipe his sweat. He kept feeling that the great emperor would flip out next. Unexpectedly, he still couldn't guess the great emperor's thoughts. The great emperor silently looked at the young couple in front of him, actually not saying anything for a long time. In fact, Mo Luxing looked at the pair in front of him. To say that he didn't feel emotional would be a lie. His son looked very similar to Wu Xia, he had long known. Especially that pair of phoenix eyes, it was simply carved out from the same mold as Wu Xia. That year, he also held his Wu Xia in such high spirits and insufferably arrogant, to see his imperial father. With a serious face, he told his imperial father, "In this life, I will only marry Wu Xia alone." Looking at the young couple in front of him, Mo Luxing actually became somewhat absent-minded. Thinking of Wu Xia lying in that cold place. His heart, as if a blunt knife was cutting his flesh, the pain was tight. Jojo poked Mo Lian's waist discreetly. "Why does your father keep looking at us like that?" "Who knows?" Mo Lian looked unhappy. She called him over but he didn't say anything. "I don't know what he wants." "Then let's go." Jojo looked up at the man with a questioning expression. Hudiquan, who was at the side, almost knelt down in front of these two. "Can the two of you not be so overboard when you're whispering to each other?" Also, who wouldn't immediately pay their respects to the great emperor when they saw him? This strange couple strolled to the Polaris Palace as if they were strolling in their own backyard. They secretly communicated with each other in front of the great emperor and even privately discussed their plans to leave. Hudiquan felt that the great emperor was quite pitiful to have such a strange son and daughter-in-law. When Mo Luxing came back to his senses, he heard Jojo say, "Then let's go." What made him angry was that his brat even hurriedly nodded, looking very much in agreement. Holding the little girl's hand, he turned around and was about to leave. "Stop right there!" Mo Luxing shouted, unable to vent his anger. Mo Lian and Arbor turned their heads at the same time. Two pairs of eyes simultaneously looked at the great emperor who was standing in front of the desk with a gloomy face. "If you have something to say, say it. What are you shouting for?" Hudiquan, the great emperor, couldn't help but be angered by these two. The way they spoke and acted was quite humorous. They even spoke in unison, hee. "What did you call us over for?" Chapter 2568. Mo Lian was displeased as he sized up the great emperor from head to toe, harumphing coldly in his heart. Mo Lian didn't know how to feel about this biological father who threw her on Seacombe planet to fend for herself since she was young. Hate. That wasn't necessary. Dislike. It seemed a little. In any case, she didn't like him that much. Moreover, father and son hadn't lived together for more than 10 years, so the feelings between them were very distant. Mo Lian couldn't remember what it was like before she was 3 years old at all. She heard the elders say how much her father loved her. Something about conferring her the title of crown prince the moment she was born and telling everyone in the world about it. Something about holding her in the imperial study to review memorials. It felt like she was listening to some heavenly book. She didn't feel anything. In any case, for as long as she could remember, she had stayed on Seacombe planet. She only felt the old great King Mo Lei's fatherly love, Empress Xiao's motherly love, and Empress Dowager Meng's kindness to her. As for this person in front of her, Mo Lian curled her lips and coldly swept her gaze over the Emperor of the Divine Continent. Mo Luxing saw his son's unfamiliar and distant gaze and couldn't help but feel a little upset. He thought about how he promised Wu Xiao to take good care of his son, but in the end, it seemed like he really didn't take good care of him. A trace of guilt floated in Mo Luxing's heart, and his tense face eased a little. He looked at his son and said, "Little glutinous dumpling, are you still blaming father?" When Mo Lian heard the words, "little glutinous dumpling," she was instantly petrified. This strange name, was it calling this prince? How could this crown prince have such a funny name? Impossible, impossible, impossible. Arbor, what the hell? Who was Little Glutinous Dumpling? Little Glutinous Dumpling seemed to be her husband's nickname. Her husband actually had such a cute nickname. This was too cute. His Highness the Crown Prince, who tried his best to maintain his aloof image in front of his wife, coldly stared at the Emperor of the Divine Continent in front of him with a frosty expression. "I'm not Little Glutinous Dumpling." Prince Mo was on the verge of a mental breakdown, but he didn't show it on his face. Mo Luxing ignored him and continued, "Little Glutinous Dumpling is the name your mother gave you." Mo Lian, Arbor, ha ha ha. Mo Lian suddenly turned his head and stared at his wife accusingly. "Wife, you're mocking your husband." Xiao Xiao really wanted to laugh, but when she saw Mo Lian's aggrieved expression, she hastily swallowed the smile on her lips. All right, if you don't want to laugh then so be it. When you were born, you were so small and weak. Your mother was afraid that you wouldn't grow up, so she gave you a nickname. Actually, you weren't round at all at that time. You were like a little monkey, very ugly." Crown Prince was speechless. Arbor's mouth twitched. However, it turned out that Wu Xia was worrying for nothing. This son of theirs was the child who had inherited the ancient Mo Lian's powerful bloodline in the entire Mo clan for thousands of years. Due to that small body, it was not enough to withstand the baptism of the ancient bloodline. Therefore, not long after the child was born, Mo Luxing gathered all the deity realm cultivators in the country to help him place several bloodline seals on the child's body. Mo Lian's handsome face was cold as he silently stared at Mo Luxing. "What exactly do you want to say?" Mo Luxing looked at him deeply. "Back then, father had no choice but to send you to Seacombe Planet." Chapter 2569. Over a decade ago, that incident almost caused his wife to die. At that time, he searched for all kinds of methods and almost destroyed the world to repair and save her bit by bit. But she couldn't move at all and couldn't smile at all. She laid there and slept for over a decade. At that time, he had to save his wife and deal with the mess left behind by the rebel army. There were even many forces in the dark who were eyeing his only child, wanting to take advantage of the situation and rob him. The situation was very grim. After much consideration, he accepted the elder's suggestion and sent the child to Seacombe Planet's Mo clan branch for Mo Lei to adopt on his behalf. He didn't expect that he would raise the child for so many years. When the child grew up, he was no longer under his father's control. He couldn't summon him back no matter what. This time, it was Mo Luxing himself who persisted. In addition, the ancient Mo Lian seal really couldn't hold him back anymore. When the seal was removed, this child's powerful aura would flow out, and it would definitely alarm the heavenly Tao and not be tolerated by the heavenly Tao. So this time, it was more or less forcing this child to scram back. The father and son hadn't interacted for so many years, so they fell into a state of speechlessness when they met. Mo Luxing suppressed a lot of things in his heart, but he didn't know where to start. Mo Lian also didn't know what to say to this father of his who was related by blood. The two stared at each other for a while. Mo Luxing's gaze suddenly shifted to Arbor at the side. He pointed at Arbor and said, "Her identity isn't suitable for you." When Mo Lien heard this, he was immediately unhappy. He held Arbor's little hand tightly and glanced at his father coldly. "Whether it's suitable or not isn't up to you to decide." Mo Luxing couldn't help but be taken aback. A scene from a long time ago seemed to appear before his eyes. Back then, Wuxia's true identity hadn't surfaced, and she was also disdained by the elders and officials. What he said back then seemed to be similar to what this child was saying now. Mo Luxing looked at his son with a slightly complicated gaze, secretly complaining in his heart, "Why are they so similar? In this lifetime, I will only have Jojo as my wife." Mo Luxing, Mo Lien didn't care about how complicated Mo Luxing's gaze was. He continued to speak, "Don't think of using such despicable methods to break us apart. Let me tell you, if you dare, I will tear your most cherished divine land into pieces and make it disappear completely." Mo Luxing almost scolded out the words unfilial son, but seeing his son's stubborn appearance, he couldn't help but sigh heavily. Mo Luxing's face darkened as he gloomily stared at Jojo. "What do you have to say? If you dare to break us apart, I will kill you." Mo Luxing, Mo Lien, Hu Dequan kept wiping his sweat. At this time, he was so shocked that he sat on the ground, paralyzed. He didn't even have time to wipe his sweat. He was simply too shocked. The little crown princess was too bold. Wasn't she afraid that the great emperor would slap her to death in anger? Mo Luxing tightly pursed his lips and looked coldly at the little fellow. "You're just a puny little third-level spirit master, and you're still hoping to kill me." Arbor immediately took off the aura-concealing talisman on her body. Her realm rose with a whoosh, rising all the way to the 10th level of Great Spirit Master before stopping. Mo Luxing was a bit shocked as he looked her up and down. He was shocked that this little fellow could actually grow to become a Great Spirit Master at such a young age in a place like the Lower Star Domain. Chapter 2570. But his expression didn't change as he coldly glanced at Arbor. "A great spiritual master is nothing. In our divine continent, people of your age can generally reach such a realm." Arbor snorted coldly and proudly raised her little chin. "Nonsense. What great emperor? You're just a great king who's awesome." Mo Luxing, why did he have the desire to slap this stinky lass to death? Eunuch who was sitting paralyzed on the ground, finally got up with great difficulty. But when he heard this, he immediately fell back down. No, he couldn't. He felt that his heart had been stimulated too much today, and he couldn't get used to it. "Why don't you find a 15-year-old 10th level great spiritual master for me to see?" The little fellow's face was full of pride. "Even if there is, it's only an extremely rare few. Don't deny it. You don't have any common sense, and you're still a great emperor." His words were filled with disdain. The great emperor was about to be angered to death by her. He fiercely glared at her and sneered. "Little lass, it's not a good thing to be too arrogant. Even if your achievements are quite high now, it doesn't mean that in the next few decades, you'll be able to smoothly increase your realm. Let's take the 5 spirits reincarnation as an example. A little lass like you can't possibly go through the 5 spirits reincarnation. This also means that you'll always stop before the divine realm." "Sorry, my divine sense has already entered the divine realm level." "That's right. It's extremely difficult for a female cultivator to become a divine realm expert." The great emperor suddenly paused. "What did you just say?" Eunuch whose eyes twitched. Mo Lien glanced at the emperor without batting an eyelid, inwardly pitying this old geezer. Boasting in front of his Jojo, he deserved to be attacked. "My divine sense has entered the divine realm level." Arbor impatiently repeated, "As long as my cultivation goes up, I can enter the divine realm whenever I want." The great emperor of the divine continent stared blankly for a while before saying with a dark face, "Nonsense. You're the one who's talking nonsense." Arbor glared at him impatiently. "If it weren't for the fact that you're Mo Lien's father, I would have beaten you up." Eunuch Hoot secretly sucked in a breath. The veins on the emperor's forehead bulged as he glared at Arbor. "Impudent lass. Do you know who you're talking to?" Arbor looked at him as if he was an idiot. "Emperor, what should he do if he wanted to slap the little girl to death more and more? I am the emperor of the divine land. Watch your attitude." The great emperor couldn't take it anymore and roared. Arbor pursed his lips and tugged at Mo Lien's sleeve. "Why are you yelling at my wife? If you have any problems, come at me." Eunuch Who looked at the great emperor with sympathy. Why did he feel that his emperor was so pitiful? He didn't dote on his son, and his daughter-in-law was disrespectful. It felt like he was an adopted father. "If you dare to do anything to my wife, don't blame me for being merciless." "How do you want to be merciless?" Mo Lushing was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. "If a single hair on my wife's head is harmed, I will destroy the entire divine land." He didn't care anyway. What did the good or bad of the divine land have to do with him? Mo Lushing was so angry that he wanted to slap this brat to death. He kept talking about destroying the entire divine land. If word got out, who knew how much gossip it would attract? "You're not allowed to say such disgraceful words in the future." "Then you're not allowed to make things difficult for my wife." Mo Lien insisted, unwilling to give in. "I was delayed by something today. It's going to be late. You guys go to sleep first and come back tomorrow." Chapter 2571. "It's not that we want to make things difficult for you," Mo Lushing said angrily, "it's just that her identity isn't suitable for you at all." "What's not suitable about it?" Mo Lien also glared back coldly. "Jojo is also a member of the 6 great patrician families. I don't believe you don't know. At yesterday's Plum Blossom Banquet, the matter of the real and fake Mu Chiao had become so exaggerated. The news of the Mu family publicly chasing the fake out had already spread throughout the entire imperial capital. He didn't believe that the emperor didn't know it all. He had already investigated Jojo countless times. Mo Lushing said coldly, "So what if she's a member of the Mu family of the Divine Province? Can she be mentioned in the same breath as a proper daughter of the Mu family? So what if she returns to the Mu family? People will still secretly say that she's a girl from the Mu family who had been stranded on Seekong planet for many years and was born as a village girl. I'll smash the mouth of whoever says it," Mo Lien said coldly. "Do you think you can shut everyone's mouths? As long as there are no people with ulterior motives stirring up trouble, I believe there are rumors, but they won't spread to the streets." When Mo Lien said the words, "people with ulterior motives," he deliberately glanced at the emperor. Mo Lushing was angered by this brat's glance. If it weren't for the fact that the person standing in front of him was the only son he had with his beloved woman, he really would have mercilessly slapped him to death. He was so stubborn. It was so tiring to talk. "You must marry the Pangde clan's princess, Jing Linyao. She's the one who's truly worthy of you. Jing Linyao is brave and resourceful, and her cultivation is profound. Although the Pangde clan is currently in a state of disunity, as long as Jing Linyao dares to unite them, with our divine province's support, there will definitely be great changes in the next few years. I'll tell you one more time. My wife will only be Jojo." Mo Lien glanced coldly at Mo Lushing. "That Jing Linyao, if you like her, marry her yourself. Unfilial son." Mo Lushing was so angry that he jumped up. "Your mother is still lying there, and you actually instigate your father to take a concubine? If your mother heard what you said, she would be angered to death." Mo Lien pursed her lips. You don't want to wrong your wife, but I don't want to wrong my wife. What? Only your wife is a wife, and my wife is not a wife. Eunuch who nodded and thought, the crown prince is right. Mo Lu Sheng was amused by his son's words. His face was dark and gloomy for a long time. Looking at the little child who used to lie on his lap and call him daddy more than 10 years ago, now able to confront him, he seemed to have an indescribable feeling in his heart. It was very complicated, very uncomfortable, and mixed with a faint sense of loneliness. After all, she had missed the most important period of her son's growth. She had missed a lot. Scram. Mo Lu Sheng waved his hand, suddenly not wanting to talk to these two damn children. Jojo, let's go. Mo Lien didn't have the slightest bit of reluctance. She directly pulled Jojo's small hand and turned to leave. Jojo suddenly turned his head and looked at Mo Lu Sheng, asking loudly, "Hey! What do you want to admit me?" Mo Liu Sheng's eyes flashed, and a plan suddenly came to his mind. That's right, since he couldn't do it from his son, then he would do it from this little girl. Let her know the difficulties and retreat. It's not impossible for me to admit you. The Divine Province's emperor pretended to ponder. You have to pass my 3 tests. Chapter 2572. What kind of test? The little fellow nodded and asked in a friendly manner. It wasn't that she needed this old man's acknowledgement, but she didn't want to make things difficult for his lotus. If it was just her, she wouldn't even consider whether this damn old man would acknowledge her or not. But for Lotus, she thought it would be better to use peaceful means before resorting to force. She would first satisfy this old man's conditions and accept his test. If after she passed, he still refused to acknowledge her, then don't blame her for being merciless. Mo Lien turned her head and looked deeply at her little fellow. She gripped her little hand tightly. Don't suffer because of me. Mo Lu Sheng wanted to slap these two to death again. No matter how he looked at them, they were an eyesore. What was going on? Ha! The first test is that you have to find 3 fire-spitting ducks today and tomorrow. You have to extract 3 drops of heart blood from the fire-spitting ducks in front of me. You also have to ensure that they continue to live. Oh. Arbor nodded his little head, then rummaged through Paradise Planet and pulled out 3 yellow-red ducks. Is this the type? The Emperor was dumbfounded. Mo Lien's mouth twitched. Eunuch who was paralyzed on the ground, continued to maintain his elegant silence. I'll extract it for you right now. Sir Jojo stretched out a finger and waved it casually. He then grabbed the 3 fire-spitting ducks and brought them to the window. He threw them on the table and sprinkled a wisp of medicinal powder on them, causing them to fall down in a daze. Arbor smoothly extracted 3 drops of heart blood from the fire-spitting ducks. But the problem was that normal spirit beasts would probably die after extracting 3 drops of heart blood. Arbor still had to ensure that these 3 ducks lived. The fastest and easiest way was to feed them pills. The great emperor was flabbergasted as he watched Xiao Mu speedily feed the 3 fire-breathing ducks 7 to 8 pills, as well as a small bottle of an unknown liquid. After a while, the 3 lively fire-breathing ducks began to wander around the imperial study. The great emperor gritted his teeth and sneered, "Ah, what a waste of pills." With so many pills, it was obvious that they weren't of low quality. Yet, she was only using them to feed 3 low-level spirit beasts. How could she do such a thing? What's the second test? The second test is to find a bloodshed vermilion fruit within 3 days. Mo Lien was stunned, and then a trace of displeasure flashed across her face. Aren't you deliberately making things difficult for people? The bloodshed vermilion fruit is a saint-grade spirit fruit. Where can we find it in 3 days? Isn't it just to make things difficult for you? The great emperor secretly snorted. If it wasn't difficult, why would he take it out for a test? This? Arbor calmly took out a small, translucent red fruit from his inner world. When this thing appeared in front of the father and son, let alone Mo Luxing, even Mo Lien was a little stunned. This bloodshed vermilion fruit was something he had conveniently obtained when he saved young Master Zhu in Shantian Prefecture. Now, it was flourishing on Paradise Planet. A small bloodshed vermilion fruit, so he gave it away. The great emperor was really stunned this time. Is this really a bloodshed vermilion fruit? Mo Luxing reached out with trembling hands to take the vermilion fruit from the little girl. Unable to contain his joy, he took out a jade box and put it away. When he raised his head, he stared at Jojo with a somewhat complicated expression. This girl was simply a bit magical. Is she really just an ordinary daughter of the Mu family who had wandered outside? Chapter 2573. Mo Luxing looked at the little girl in front of him with a complicated expression. He kept a straight face and his body was stiff, almost not knowing what to say. What could he say? The little girl had effortlessly solved his test questions twice in a row. This caused him to be shocked, and a strange feeling arose in his heart. This little girl was really quite strong. What's the third question? The little girl asked curiously. Mo Luxing said with a sour face, let's leave it like this for now. This third question, wait until Jin thinks of it. He already didn't dare to casually come up with a question and let this little guy give him a slap in the face within minutes. He had an inexplicable feeling of wanting to cry. He felt like his dignity as a father was about to be destroyed without a trace. Infuriating. Mo Luxing felt that the little girl was quite strange. He wouldn't admit that he was a little scared. He snorted with a cold face, enough, all of you scram. Then that means, you admit Jojo. Who said I admit it? Hearing his son's words, Mo Luxing couldn't help but glare back. Then continue the test. You can admit it after the test. Mo Lien wouldn't let this old man with a belly full of evil tricks go back and gather the smartest people to discuss a scam project for his wife. Mo Luxing's eyes flashed, don't mess around. Let's leave it like this for now. It's nothing, test. Sir Jojo roared. Mo Luxing, why were these two brats so hard to fool? What a headache. Alright, then admit it for now. Mo Luxing thought of a compromise and said coldly, but don't be happy too early. This is only temporary. When I think of the third question, if you don't pass it, you have to leave my son of your own accord. Do you agree? On what basis? Mo Luxing. Slap this evildoer to death. If I don't pass the test, it's just you not admitting it. On what basis do you want me to leave Lotus? You're dreaming. It's impossible for me to leave my Lotus. The little fellow looked at Mo Lien warily, then he shrank into Mo Lien's arms and arched his back. Mo Lien nodded and quickly reached out to hug her. His wife was smart and mighty, she immediately found the loophole in the old man's words. Get lost. Then let's do it this way. Mo Luxing felt like he was about to explode from anger. He couldn't be bothered to say another word to this couple. Wait. Mo Lien calmly called out to Mo Luxing, who was waving his hand to chase them away. What else do you want? Mo Luxing really wanted to shake his wife awake and let her wake up to see how that soft and cute little bun had become so terrifying. Since you've temporarily acknowledged Jojo, then do something that father should do. The great emperor's eyes lit up. Imperial father. This was the first time this brat had called him Imperial father since he came back. Did he already admit that he was his father? Ha! Ba, 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 ba. My thoughts have been led astray by this pair of weirdos. What was there to admit or not? He was that brat's father. There was no need to doubt this blood connection. Do what? The great emperor asked with a solemn face. The moment he said that, he almost bit his own tongue. Write an imperial edict. And let eunuch who read it out. We must let everyone in the imperial capital know. The great emperor angrily glared at this damned son who was taking advantage of him. Chapter 2574. By His Majesty's decree, the Mu family is ordered to bring the crown princess back to the Mu family in style within 5 days. Prove her identity and announce it to the world. If there is any disobedience, the entire family will be executed. Those who feign compliance but secretly oppose will be executed. The group of Mu family members who had come out to receive eunuch whose decree looked at each other in bewilderment. What happened? Where were they? How could such a strange decree descend on their heads? What did it mean that the crown princess must be brought back within 5 days? If she couldn't, the entire family would be executed. Wasn't this execution a little too exaggerated? Mu Jingfeng indifferently led everyone to kowtow and expressed their thanks before standing up and bowing to receive the decree. Mu Jingrui had a strange expression as he stepped forward to ask the imperial eunuch who, with a smile, "This eunuch, may I know what His Majesty's decree means?" "Isn't it the literal meaning?" Eunuch who swept his horsetail whisk and calmly said, "You all have to work hard. 5 days is neither long nor short. Hurry and strive for it." Mu Jingrui's eyes twitched as he hastily asked, "Then what if the young crown princess insists on not returning?" Eunuch who immediately turned hostile and mercilessly waved his hand. Pitch-black figures appeared in the surroundings. Judging from their figures and auras, most of them were level 13 spiritual masters and above, and there were even 2 or 3 divine realm experts mixed in. "Look carefully. These people will stay here to supervise you for 5 days. If you make any strange movements during this time, you will be in big trouble. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Don't think of such useless thoughts." After eunuch who finished nagging, he left with the group of people without looking back. The black-clothed people lurking around the rooftops also naturally concealed themselves. They were so silent that no one could do anything about it. Everyone immediately looked at Mu Jingfeng in a panic. "Family head, what should we do about today's matter?" Mu Jingfeng was also very puzzled. This imperial edict came out of the blue without any warning. Suddenly, such a strange imperial edict was issued, telling them to go and welcome the young crown prince consort back to the Mu family. Could it be that the great emperor wants to acknowledge the identity of the crown princess? Otherwise, why would it give people the feeling that the emperor was supporting the crown princess? Could it be an illusion? No one could answer their questions, so they could only leave resentfully. Mu Jingfeng's eyes darkened as he looked at the imperial edict in his hand. His heart felt heavy. He didn't know why, but he had a feeling that a storm was coming. "Xingchen, bring some people to the palace tomorrow and invite the crown princess to come to our Mu family." Mu Jingfeng coldly said, "When the time comes, I'll have someone open the ancestral hall and bring out the bloodline talisman to verify its authenticity." Mu Xingchen looked up in shock, and his gaze swept over his father indifferently. "That's the crown prince consort. Not just anyone can meet her." The tone of her father's words was really laughable. He made it sound like a fish waiting to be slaughtered in the market, and any random person would be able to slaughter a piece of it. "If you want to meet the crown princess, you have to see if she's willing to meet you." While the Mu family was in a mess, the Shi family was also in a state of chaos. Ever since Shi Yongqian was whipped 30 times by Arbor and carried back to the Shi family, the Shi family's eldest madam seemed to have gone crazy and kept clamoring to seek revenge on Arbor. If the Shi family's head hadn't slapped her so hard that she couldn't get up, she would have run away long ago. Chapter 2575. Madame Sher was already furious. Her second daughter, who was as beautiful as a flower, was actually beaten to such a state. How could she endure this? She couldn't tolerate this. So what if that person was the crown princess? How could she beat her precious daughter to such a state without asking for the reason? She had to reason with her. Slap. Patriarch Sher slapped Madame Sher. Are you sober now? How dare you go and make trouble? Go out and ask around. The Mu family is going to be in big trouble. How dare you provoke the crown princess? Master, I'm just worried about our daughter. So what if you're worried about her? She was the one who did not behave properly, so she was caught red-handed and given a good beating. If she was a good person, how could the crown prince consort not let go of her? What other reason could the crown princess have to whip her? Don't blame others for your own stupidity. Patriarch Sher waved his hand and said angrily, that's enough. You're not allowed to go anywhere. After Madame Sher ran away crying, the eldest son of the Sher family frowned and said, Father, is the matter with the Mu family true? Could it be that the emperor has acknowledged the crown princess, so he's anxious to prove the crown princess's identity so that she can be a good match for His Highness the Crown Prince? Patriarch Sher shook his head. It's not so easy to guess the emperor's thoughts. We don't need to care about anything and just wait and see. After a pause, he said, the emperor has been silent for many years. Many people have forgotten that he himself is a transcendent realm master. It's said that more than half of the purple forest guards of the 7 color guards are transcendent realm masters. This is a very strong open guard. The emperor probably has countless hidden guards in his hands. No one knows what realm they are in. If the Mu family really disobeys the decree, they will face the wrath of the emperor and be destroyed. The eldest son of the Sher family took a breath and nodded with a sorrowful expression. Although the Mu family's decree is strange, it's not without reason. Right now, the situation is hard to predict. The crown prince has yet to enter the court, his voice lowered. After His Highness the Crown Prince enters the court, I'm afraid the situation will become even more treacherous. We have to be careful at every step. I'll listen to you, father. The eldest son of the Sher family nodded. Let's see what the Mu family will do. Your sister and mother, those 2 idiots, can't do anything right. Keep an eye on them and don't let them cause any trouble. Yes. At this moment, the great emperor, who was sulking in his study, crushed a pen. He wasn't the young crown prince consort's protective umbrella. Those brainless fools. What kind of messy news have they spread? He couldn't wait for this little crown princess to get out of Dragon Flame City as soon as possible so that she wouldn't always bring trouble to herself. No, he had to gather all the strategists and discuss the 3rd project as soon as possible so that the little crown princess wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Achoo! Sir Jojo reached out and rubbed his red little nose. He retracted his head from the window and wrapped his cloak tightly around himself. Crown Princess, a young master of the Mu family called Mu Xingqian is outside Qingqian Gate asking to see the Crown Princess. The little Crown Princess ignored him. She took out the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron from her inner world and began to study how to make pills. It wasn't until evening when Mo Lien returned from the study that Jojo finished refining the last batch of pills. He put away the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron and popped a pill into his mouth, chewing it like a candy. Mo Lien smiled and winked at her. The moon is beautiful tonight. Do you want to accompany your husband for a walk? 10 o'clock. Chapter 2576. Sir Jojo handed him a small box with a rectangular carving. Here, eat it. You can eat it every day, or every few days. I'll give it to you after you eat it. It tasted pretty good. The little fellow gave him such a look. Mo Lien couldn't help but laugh when he saw that. These black-level nourishing pills were indeed pretty good. Not only did they not have any side effects after long-term consumption, but they could also strengthen the meridians and strengthen the body. They were also effective for immortal supremacies. JoJo's products were definitely of high quality. The little fellow took out another pill and threw it into his mouth, chewing. Then, he jumped into Mo Lien's arms and rubbed his chest. I'm not going out for 3 days. The Mu family will be worried sick. But since you're inviting me so warmly, I'll reluctantly accept. Pfft, Mo Lien laughed out loud. He reached out and lifted the little fellow up high, kissing him hard. My JoJo, is it really okay for you to be so proud? Okay. That's great. Sir JoJo nodded secretly. He wrapped his arms around his neck and rubbed his head against his shoulder. He called out softly, Lien. Mo Lien's heart skipped a beat. He lowered his head to look at her. Under the setting sun, the little person looked like a jade doll painted with a faint golden light. She was extremely adorable. Mo Lien simply couldn't bear to let go of her. JoJo, I'll take you to the Despondent Pavilion to watch a performance. Sir JoJo quite liked to watch performances that included music, singing and juggling. When he said that, his eyes lit up and he looked forward to it. Mo Lien carried her out of the door. Not long after they got into the carriage, they left Lishing Gate and headed towards Changle Street. Changle Street was bustling with activity at night. There were many pedestrians strolling along the street. Cars came and went. Rows upon rows of restaurants and restaurants lined the street. Everyone was bustling with noise and guests. From this, it could be seen that the livelihood of the people in Dragon Flame City was really good. The people all lived and worked in peace and contentment. They even had money to spare. The Despondent Pavilion was at the end of Changle North Street. It would take some time to get there. Mo Lien held the little fellow and chatted for a while, subconsciously teasing her to open her mouth. Towards the end of his teasing, the little thing spoke unhappily again. That expression of hers was as if she had finished speaking 800 years' worth of words. She even had an accusatory expression on her face. How amusing. I want to talk. Mo Lien continued to chat with her patiently and gently. JoJo, you're much better than before. When we were young, even if I spoke 10 sentences to you, you wouldn't even bother to respond to me. Arbor snorted. I talk a lot every day now. Imperial Ant had a great chat with me that day. Is that so? Mo Lien looked suspicious. With the little fellow's personality, who knew how Imperial Ant would be able to strike up a conversation with her and even chat happily? Just thinking about it made it seem impossible. Sir JoJo raised his little chin proudly. Mo Lien was delighted at the sight. He took the little fellow and kissed her on the cheek. JoJo, your birthday is in 10 days. What do you want? Arbor looked up at him and said decisively, I want you. Mo Lien was stunned. Then he hugged the little fellow and couldn't help but chuckle softly. Alright, I'll wrap myself up and give myself to JoJo on that day. Sir JoJo nodded in satisfaction and raised his hand to touch his chin. Very good. Mo Lien's smile overflowed from his gentle gaze. He lowered his head and kissed her gently on the lips. JoJo, I like you. Chapter 2577. The little fellow cupped her little chin with her hands and retreated to the window. She lay there, pretending to be calm as she looked out of the window. Oh, my little sweetheart. Her heart almost jumped out of her chest just now. How could this man be so flirtatious? Mo Lien snuggled up to her and hugged her small waist with a grin. "You're shy, Chow Chow." "Pooh." The little fellow looked like she couldn't be bothered to talk. She leaned against the window and looked out at the night view. Her heart was filled with delight. She couldn't help it. With a handsome man holding her arm, she felt inexplicably happy. "Jojo, if you don't talk to me, I'm going to bite you." Sir Jojo's little ears secretly heated up. He suddenly pointed to a slender alley beside them. "What's that place?" Mo Lien looked out with interest. The carriage happened to pass by a fork in the road. There was a small arched bridge with a high slope. Beyond that was a dark place filled with red lights. There was a sign above that said Amusement Alley. Mo Lien narrowed his eyes and hugged the little fellow's waist. He waved the curtain down and said expressionlessly, "Stop looking. There's nothing to see." "Oh, I know." Sir Jojo had a flash of inspiration. He pointed and said, "That's a place like Spring House." Chow Chow actually still remembered Spring House. Mo Lien's beautiful phoenix eyes narrowed dangerously, and he lowered his head to look seriously at his wife. "Chow Chow, do you still remember the red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple flowers of the spring pavilion?" Jojo blinked her big eyes. "What's a seven-colored flower?" It was obvious that she didn't remember. It was only then that Mo Lien was secretly delighted, but his expression didn't change. "Then why do you only remember spring-filled flower?" "I think those red lanterns look more like it." Jojo pointed outside the window through the curtain. "Those with red lanterns are usually in red light districts." Mo Lien, what the hell was this? During festivals, every household would hang red lanterns in front of their doors. But forget it, the little fellow was right to think this way. The dim red lanterns were indeed the symbol of the red light district. But this time, the little fellow guessed wrong. That was no ordinary red light district. Entertainment Alley was the most famous jade tripod market in Dragonflame City. The cauldrons here didn't refer to the cauldrons used to refine pills and weapons, but to female slaves who had been captured or sold. These female slaves were mostly shouja above the spirit realm. They were picked by some of the stronger male shou as tools to help them increase their cultivation. In their eyes, these female slaves could only be tools. Although she was a female cultivator, her life was even worse than that of the commoners at the bottom of Dragonflame City. Although Mo Lien didn't like this kind of place, she wouldn't interfere in the management of this matter. After all, the jade tripod market had existed for more than 1,000 years. There were such markets everywhere in the 3 prefectures. It was not that he could get rid of this evil habit by being kind. Moreover, he had just returned to the Divine Land. Everything had to start anew. Before he grasped the situation, he wouldn't act rashly. There was no such thing as a Saint Father's heart. Although Mo Lien looked like a spring breeze on the outside, in fact, she was much colder than Jojo in the depths of her heart. After all, she had always been in a superior position. Her way of looking at people and her way of thinking was always from the big picture. "Why aren't you saying anything?" Chapter 2578. Mo Lien came back to his senses and saw that the little fellow had climbed onto his lap like a soft little animal. She was sitting in his arms and looking at him with a puzzled expression. The man almost couldn't control himself and pushed her down reflexively. Then, he hurriedly carried this little ancestor to the side and calmed his agitated emotions. He coughed lightly and said, "Jojo, don't crawl around." Arbor pursed its little lips and resentfully retracted its little claws. With such an interruption, she had long forgotten the question she had asked him earlier. Mo Lien naturally wouldn't take the initiative to mention the jade tripod market, so this matter passed just like that. Not long after, they arrived at the despondent pavilion. The two alighted and were welcomed in by two quick-witted page boys standing at the door. To enter the garden, one had to pay a fee of 100 spirit coins per person. The price wasn't low. If one wasn't from a wealthy family, one wouldn't come to such a place to spend money. The two of them came at the right time. The private room on the second floor was the last one. The hall below was already filled with people. The performance was about to begin in 15 minutes. The despondent pavilion was a place where one could eat and play, so business was booming on weekdays. At night, it was even more packed every day. It was said that the pavilion master was very good at doing business. He was very good at taking advantage of the rich's tendency to compete and spend money recklessly. Every single performance was set up to compete for prizes. After the performance, a host immediately went up and shouted, "How many spirit coins did this Master Wang spend?" Master Zhao gave a deed to a side garden. There were too many of them to count. After the performance, the rich enjoyed watching and spending money to their heart's content. The pavilion master of the despondent pavilion also made a lot of money. The most important thing was that the pavilion master of the despondent pavilion's performance was full of tricks. If other people wanted to copy the pavilion master's ideas and set up a variety show pavilion of their own, it would be impossible. The main reason was that this pavilion master was too smart. After a while, he would launch a new round of programs and lead a new trend in Dragon Flame City. Even if the group of people below wanted to copy, it was useless. They had just copied someone else's old tricks, and someone else's new tricks would immediately follow. The endless new tricks were too much for the eyes to take in. The rich people all liked to run to Despondent Pavilion. As for the rest of the small fries, even if they went to other pavilions, they would not lose much. Mr. Jojo reached out to take an exquisite menu and flipped through it. He looked curiously at the waiter who was wearing a red festive outfit. "Your menu is quite interesting." In other restaurants, a few words were written on a wooden board and hung on the wall for customers to order. There were also some small shops that didn't even have any brands at all. Whatever customers wanted to eat was completely up to the waiter. His family was different. Not only did they make an exquisite menu that was as thin as a book, but the prices of the various dishes were also clearly marked. For example, a plate of potato powder cost 50 spirit coins. It was indeed expensive, but it was Jojo's first time seeing such a way of ordering food. The waiter said proudly, "Of course. Our menu is the only one in the entire Dragon Flame City." The pride in his tone was fully revealed. Arbor glanced at the waiter and reached out to order a few dishes. He flipped through the page and ordered a few more. The waiter hurriedly said, "Sir, I'm afraid the two of you won't be able to finish so many dishes." Arbor ignored him and ordered a lot of dishes. Then, he closed the menu and said to the waiter, "That's all. Go and prepare." Chapter 2579. They really were two strange people. The two of them actually ordered a table full of dishes. None of them were cheap. The waiter inwardly muttered as he left the door. When he opened the door, two women passed by, seemingly inadvertently glancing at him. Bang! The door that the waiter had just closed was suddenly kicked open by someone. Arbor's hand that was holding the teacup paused slightly. He turned his head and saw two people standing at the door. One was Mu Ro Yun, concubine Shi's youngest daughter. He had just met her at General Zhong Li's estate. Arbor didn't recognize the other person. However, when he saw her slightly raised chin with an expression that said she was number one in the world, a faint trace of displeasure surfaced in his heart. That's right. How could someone who could walk together with Mu Ro Yun be a good person? Why are you here? Mu Ro Yun glared fiercely at Arbor as she questioned him angrily. If it wasn't for this vicious and merciless woman in front of her, how could she have been beaten to the point of vomiting blood? And how could concubine Sure have been punished by father and shut herself in Wulon Garden for 5 days to reflect on her mistakes? It was all this slut's fault for using her status to bully others everywhere. Get out of dejected pavilion immediately. How dare you? Eunuch Chen, who was quietly waiting by his master's side and silently serving tea, couldn't bear it any longer and angrily shouted. From the moment this woman kicked the door open, only her rude voice could be heard. If he didn't stop her now, when would he? Mo Lian's eyes also carried a trace of anger as she coldly glanced at Mu Ro Yun. Jojo didn't say anything, so Mo Lian also didn't say anything. Eunuch Chen had already walked forward and reached out to stop Mu Ro Yun, who was about to rush over. Which family are you from? How can you be so rude? Ro Yun, she's that self-righteous crown princess who has never been acknowledged by the emperor. She thinks she's omnipotent? The 3 words, crown princess, came out of the mouth of this arrogant girl. She especially emphasized her tone, appearing especially sarcastic. Impudent! Eunuch Chen angrily shouted. He was truly angered. He didn't even need to turn his head to know that the crown prince was furious. He immediately felt a layer of cold sweat on his back. These 2 ignorant women actually dared to barge into the crown prince and crown princess' private room without permission. They were simply courting death. Dog slave, back off. A trace of anger flashed in Su Shitao's eyes. A servant dares to yell in front of me. Who gave you the courage? Eunuch Chen was so angry that he laughed. And who are you? This is Princess Tao, King Zhang's younger sister. Mu Royun looked at the little crown princess with a smug expression. The viciousness in her eyes could not be concealed. Mo Lian's eyes narrowed dangerously. Since when did King Zhang have a younger sister? Prince Mo Lian was an orphan when he was young. By chance, he was adopted by Mo Lian's mother. That was how he became the adopted son of the great emperor. Didn't they say that King Zhang had no relatives and was all alone? Who was this little sister that appeared out of nowhere? Moreover, Princess Tao. Mo Lian sneered. Who conferred you the title of princess? Su Shitao looked over when she heard the voice. When she saw the man sitting there, her face involuntarily reddened. However, she still raised her chin and said with an extremely arrogant expression, "This is how everyone respectfully addresses me. They all like to call me princess." Moreover, her elder brother was King Zheng, a dignified prince and the adopted son of the great emperor. In terms of seniority, she naturally deserved the title of princess. Chapter 2580. Pfft, Eunuch Chen couldn't help but laugh out loud. Where did this girl come from? She had never seen the world before. She actually proclaimed herself as a regional princess. Didn't she know that regional princesses had ranks? That was a title conferred by the imperial court and a salary. In addition, some regional princesses might even be bestowed with land. He had never seen someone like this girl, who was so boastful and hilarious. He didn't know where she got the face to actually think that there was nothing wrong with others calling her a regional princess. When Su Shitao saw Eunuch Chen's attitude, her eyes immediately turned red from anger. She swung a slap at Eunuch Chen's face. "You unruly servant, how dare you look down on me?" Ever since she followed her parents to the capital to search for her relatives and found her elder brother, Mo Shikang, she had a few good months. She was flattered by a group of noble ladies around her to the point that she almost forgot her own surname. Her personality was bossy and domineering, and she would hit whenever she wanted to. How could she care about who Eunuch Chen was? How could Eunuch Chen be hit by this woman? Seeing her slap, he hurriedly reached out to block it, using his arm to separate her demonic claws. "Ah!" Su Shitao was pushed back a few steps by eunuch Qin. She glared at him. "You unruly servant, how dare you retaliate? Throw them out," Mo Lien said impatiently. Eunuch Qin hurriedly took 2 steps forward and lifted Su Shitao and Mu Royun up like chickens. He directly threw them out of the door and closed it with a bang. Ah! Mu Royun and Su Shitao both fell to the ground and stood up with ashen faces. Su Shitao said angrily, "Who is that man?" He was actually so heartless that he directly ordered his servant to throw these 2 delicate young ladies out of the door. Don't say that Mu Royun's brain was really lacking. Even now, she still didn't understand why the attack talismans she used to attack Arbor ended up injuring herself. Now, it was even more impossible for her to associate the man in the private room with His Highness the Crown Prince. How would I know? Mu Royun stomped her feet. Regional Princess Tao, you also saw it. That woman is arrogant and rude by nature. She doesn't even respect you. Su Shitao's face darkened. I will definitely tell Big Brother about this. Her brother, Mo Shikong, loved her the most. He would definitely seek justice for her. Hearing this, Mu Royun couldn't help but roll her eyes. Don't tell me you're going to leave with your tail between your legs. While they were talking, an old man walked over and bowed to them. He asked in confusion, "Sixth Miss, Princess Tao, why are you 2 standing here?" "Steward," he. Mu Royun's eyes lit up when she saw the old man. "Sir, the dishes are here." The waiter opened the door and served all kinds of dishes. That manager he, along with Mu Royun and Su Shitao, forcibly pushed aside several waiters who were serving the dishes. With a cold expression, he looked at Arbor and Mo Lien and said, "Guests, you cannot continue to eat at our frustrated pavilion." Mu Royun smugly curled her lips. When she thought that she would be able to see Arbor, this damn woman, being chased out of frustrated pavilion with her tail between her legs, she couldn't help but feel smug. Arbor slightly raised her head and saw Mu Royun's smug expression. Her heart stirred and she asked, "This frustrated pavilion is your Mu family's property?" Steward, he nodded with a dark expression. Chapter 2581. Slap. Mo Lien slapped her chopsticks heavily on the table as she coldly gazed at that manager he. "You're quite arrogant." His lips curled into a mocking smile as he sneered. Steward, he followed suit and cupped his hands, looking as if he was ready to risk everything. "Guests, please." "Ha! Interesting." Even eunuch Qin couldn't help but be amused. These people truly weren't afraid of death. They were so eager to provoke His Highness the Crown Prince. Arbor couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these people and picked up her chopsticks to eat. The dishes tasted all right, but there was still a gap between them and her small kitchen. They didn't look very tasty, but the price was several times higher than that of ordinary restaurants and shops outside. Most likely, this was the price set by the rich. In the eyes of those foolish rich people who had too much money, the higher the price, the better the food. Who would have thought that the taste was just a so-so? Arbor was greatly disappointed and directly threw her chopsticks down, not eating anymore. She had only touched a few chopsticks with this table full of dishes. Her large eyes flickered as she beckoned to the waiter brothers standing next to her. Come, put it in a box. It wouldn't be good to waste so much food." She heard that many refugees had been arranged in the Huanlang area in the western part of the city recently, so she'd just have someone send the food over. For some reason, the waiter brothers immediately obeyed and moved. Their behavior made manager he glare at them in dissatisfaction. Who exactly was the master and who was the servant? He already said to chase these 2 people out, but no one dared to move. Now that they heard the little stoic's order, they immediately went to do it. It was simply infuriating. On the other hand, Arbor was very satisfied with these waiters' deft movements. She nodded and said to them, "Get a box and pad it with 2 pieces of cotton cloth. Don't let it get cold." "Yes." The waiter busily found another box of cotton cloth and so on and wrapped the food properly. It was only then that Arbor said to the air behind her, "Hui Feng. Hey, Crown Princess, tell me, what orders do you have?" Hui Feng giggled and flashed to their side. "Send this food to Huanlang district in the west of the city and distribute it to the old, weak, women, and children." Steward, he was so angry that his nose was almost crooked. Could it be that no one would listen to a living person like him standing here? "What are you doing? Do you all want to rebel?" "Steward," he shouted angrily at those workers with red eyebrows and green eyes, "if you don't want to work here, then scram. You didn't listen to me, but you followed 2 outsiders and worked blindly. Everyone, stop." The employees looked at each other, and for a moment, they were all silent out of fear. They really didn't want to offend the 2 noble guests. With just one look, they could tell that these 2 people weren't people that ordinary workers like them could afford to offend. They went out to work because they wanted to earn more money. They didn't want to lose their lives. "Shut up." The little crown princess suddenly flared up. She slapped the table and reprimanded harshly, "You're like a housefly making noise. Slap your mouth." Eunuch Chen was already fuming. When he heard the crown princess's order, he rolled up his sleeves without another word and slapped Manager He's face. "A lousy little manager dares to shout so casually in front of the crown prince and the crown princess. You simply don't want your life anymore." Mu Royun, who was originally immensely pleased with herself, was instantly stunned. The crown prince. Chapter 2582. Her short-circuited brain seemed to have just been reconnected. She stared blankly at Mo Lien, who was sitting at the table with a cold expression. How was this possible? His Highness the Crown Prince had such a high status. How could he accompany that little bitch to Despondent Pavilion to listen to music and watch performances? What did this woman do to deserve His Highness the Crown Prince's favor and even accompany her on a night tour? From what everyone said, wasn't she just a village woman from a mountain village? His Highness the Crown Prince occasionally brought her back to the Divine Prefecture out of kindness. When His Highness the Crown Prince saw the noble ladies of the Divine Prefecture, he would broaden his horizons and clearly understand the difference between that little bitch and the noble ladies of the Divine Prefecture. Sooner or later, wouldn't His Highness the Crown Prince kick this little bitch away? Mu Royun didn't know why, but her palms were sweating. She was only 14 years old. Although she was usually arrogant, she didn't have much ability. At a young age, she naturally didn't consider things thoroughly. Now that she encountered this situation, she could only stand there in a daze. Her mind instantly went blank, and she didn't know how to react. On the side, Su Shitao was also stunned, and he sized up Crown Prince Mo in disbelief. What? This was His Highness the Crown Prince of the Divine Prefecture who had just entered the imperial capital? Arbor was amused by this woman's gaze. In her opinion, she would rather deal with a smart person like Jing Linyao than talk nonsense with this idiot in front of her. Have you seen enough? Miss Chiao wasn't happy that her man was being sized up by others. She coldly said, "Come, tie her up and send her back to Prince Zhang's estate." Tong's figure immediately appeared in front of Su Shitao. He didn't say anything and directly restrained her. Let go of me, you bastard. How dare you treat me like this? My big brother won't let you off." Su Shitao stared coldly at Arbor and shouted harshly. "Stay your hand." Suddenly, a calm voice interrupted the clamorous noise in the room. How can you be so rude in front of His Highness the Crown Prince? He was wearing a royal blue robe. His black hair was neatly combed and tied under an ink-colored crown. Mo Shikang walked in quickly and glared at his sister, Su Shitao, unhappily. Mo Shikang was about 27 or 28 years old. He looked like a very refined and gentle man. His appearance was not as outstanding as the Mo family. However, in front of the crown prince, who had a magnificent bearing and unparalleled handsomeness, Mo Shikang's elegant appearance and outstanding temperament did not pale in comparison. Tao, why aren't you apologizing to the crown prince and crown princess? Mo Shikang glanced at Su Shitao. Behind her was Mo Shikang's wife, Princess Consort Jing, Shi Yongyan. The moment she entered the room, she saw the little crown princess's deep, dark eyes. She couldn't help but feel nervous. Ever since the drama at General Zhong Li's residence, Shi Yongyan felt that the little crown princess was like a tigress that would explode at any moment. It was best not to provoke them if possible. Shi Yongyan's personality was much smoother than her arrogant second sister who didn't know etiquette. The moment she entered the room, she smiled and bowed. Greetings to the crown prince and crown princess. Arbor returned half a bow and called faintly, sister-in-law. No matter what, as long as Prince Xing was the great emperor's adopted son, he couldn't escape the title of adopted brother and sister-in-law in name. Arbor also knew how to put on an act. Wasn't it just pretending to be harmonious? Chapter 2583. Tao, Mo Shikang's tone sank slightly. Su Shitao stomped her feet and unwillingly bowed. She said to Mo Lian and Arbor, Tao, was immature and offended the two of you. Please forgive me. The situation was stronger than the person. She was only temporarily bowing her head. She wasn't trying to save face for the crown princess from the countryside. Su Shitao pursed her lips and barely suppressed the disdain in her eyes. Who knew how long the crown princess could remain? Sooner or later, His Majesty would find a way to replace her. To be honest, the many noble families in the capital all adopted a wait-and-see attitude. They didn't think highly of the young crown princess. Arbor coldly swept a glance at Mo Shikang. King Zhang's apology is enough to let go of your sister's crime of disobeying this crown princess. King Zhang, Mo Shikang, was slightly taken aback. Only then did he focus on sizing up the young crown princess. With such exquisite features and a cold and noble aura, was it really as the rumors said, that the crown prince consort was just a young woman from a mountain village? Mo Shikang naturally wouldn't argue with Arbor. He only smiled and cupped his hands at Mo Lian. His Highness the Crown Prince has only returned to the capital a few days ago, so I didn't dare to disturb him. I originally wanted to pay a visit tomorrow, but I didn't expect that things would be so coincidental that we would meet in the Despondent Pavilion. It's also because I didn't manage my sister properly that she became so arrogant and offended the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. I will apologize to the two of you on her behalf. I hope that the two of you will forgive her this time on account of her young age. Mo Shikang generously admitted his mistake and said with a smile, when I return, I will definitely teach this child a lesson. Child? How old was she? She would never grow up. Arbor rolled her eyes. She felt that Mo Shikang was too gentle and not decisive enough. She disliked this temperament of his. It was no wonder that he taught his sister to be like this. Arbor only knew part of the story. In fact, Mo Shikang was wronged when it came to educating his sister. He had only met his biological parents 3 months ago. How could he talk about educating his sister? They had been separated for more than 20 years. However, it was true that he was indecisive and kind. He was a filial man. Seeing his biological parents living such a miserable life, he couldn't bear it. Taking them in seemed to be a matter of course. Mo Shikong saw that the little crown princess was unhappy, so he cupped his hands and said, "Please forgive me, sister-in-law." Since she had already said that, it would be unreasonable if she still did not forgive Mo Shikong's sister. Mo Lian turned to look at his little wife. He didn't care. If his little wife wanted to punish this arrogant Su Shitao, he would let her be. Of course, Jojo wouldn't make things difficult for him. After all, this was the first time he had met his sworn brother. He would give him face if he had to. However, Prince Zheng, is your sister's family living in your Prince Zheng's residence now? The little fellow asked with a stoic face. Yes. Then you really have to control them well. You can't go out and say that Prince Zheng's residence is undignified. After all, that family is living in your residence now. They represent the face of Prince Zheng's residence. These words struck a chord in Shi Yongyan's heart. She hadn't had a good time in the past few months. Ever since that family came, things hadn't stopped. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.